Hey, good afternoon, everybody. It's 6 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock on The Drive. You're listening to The Drive, which we do each day here between 3 and 7, and we give you 4 hours of news and information so that you can arrive home fully briefed, ready to sit down to dinner and have a conversation about the events of the day with your family. That's our goal each day here, to drive you home and to drive the liberals just a little crazy. So we got all kinds of stuff to talk about here today. I'll start with talking about the situation with regards to the war against Israel. Let me start with the briefing today that occurred at the White House, where we heard from Admiral John Kirby, who speaks on behalf of the National Security Council. He really is seems to be the point man for getting the message out about what the Biden administration believes about all this. And there was more depressing news right off the start.
We can now update the number of Americans that we know have been killed to 27, and the number of unaccounted for stands today at 14. We're obviously doing everything we can to support and inform the families. Now, sadly, 5 more families have now gotten the worst possible news that any family can conceive of getting. And we're going to stay in touch with them as appropriate. Same goes for those family members of those who are unaccounted for. And by unaccounted for, we mean that. We don't know where they are. They don't know where they are. So we're going to obviously stay in touch with them as well. And certainly we're continuing to work with Israeli officials to make sure that we're getting as much context and information as possible that we will share with them. Also, as you, I think, realize, we are all acutely aware of limited availability right now on commercial flights out of Israel, and the demand signal by U.S. citizens who may want to depart. The President has asked his team to ensure that we are assisting U.S. citizens who do want to leave Israel and providing them with a safe means of doing that. So beginning tomorrow, the United States government will arrange charter flights to provide transportation from Israel to sites in Europe. They're still working through some of the details of that to assist U.S. citizens and their immediate family members who have, for whatever reason, not been able to provide commercial transit out of the country.
I don't understand that. Why is it that we have to spend all this time, arranging for charter flights? I mean, charter flights don't want to go in there. Neither do commercial flights right now. I mean, who wants to fly a multi-million-dollar aircraft into a war zone? But it would seem to me that the United States government, well, I don't know, last time I checked, we have a lot of airplanes. We have them, and we some of them are designed to carry people. You can put I mean, this is so easy. You can take a C-130, because I've been in one, and put a pallet of seats in it and fly people out of there in a C-130. They can set that up in an hour. Doesn't take any time at all to put the seats in there and lock it down and get it headed that direction. If I were president of the United States, you know what I would do? You have at your immediate disposal a number of aircraft. You have a 757 that is usually used by the vice president. You have not one but 2 Air Force Ones. Could you spare one for an afternoon if you're not going anywhere? You still have the doomsday plane if you need that. So you're not putting yourself at any risk. I mean, ship off one of your 747s and land it there at Ben Gurion. Do you think anybody's going to take a shot at Air Force One? I don't think so. And load as many people up as you can. Send the 757. The vice president, she's not needing to go anywhere important. And, getting people out of Israel will be more important than that. Well, why wouldn't you do something like that? Why wouldn't you send military aircraft that can carry people? We've got them, and I don't understand that. I don't understand why we have to mess around with trying to find a bunch of parts. Time is of the essence for a lot of these people who want to get out. And I would say just send some aircraft. I mean, you've got them. That's as easy for you as picking up the phone and say, send them, Mr. President. But anyway, they say, well, we're working with charter groups to get them all out. The other thing that I picked up in those opening statements was what he said about the hostages. Now, there are 14 people now unaccounted for, and we know that some of them are hostages. And then there was this little thing he said, we don't know where they are In fact, they don't know where they are. Probably true. It also suggests to me that it somehow they have had some line of communications with someone who was a hostage, and who told them they didn't know where they were. It's not surprising. They're blindfolded as they're carried from place to place to place by the Hamas forces. So they move around regularly. They split them up into small groups. So you're not going to find them all sitting in one room in an obvious place. It's a difficult task, and we need to brace ourselves for more images, according to Kirby, because we haven't seen the worst of it yet. And I want to talk more about that in a second. Here's what he said about that.
We all need to be prepared for the fact that there's going to be additional gruesome images coming out. And there's going to be some pretty tough reports for all of us to swallow. This is not over.
No, it's not over, and he's right about that. About that. Many people have said, we hear about beheaded babies, we hear about these gruesome pictures, and all we see really is the aftermath. And how do we know that this is true? There's an old saying about what happens in times of war, that the first casualty is usually the truth. And look, let me say, the Israelis are not above using psyops to get a point across or to change public opinion. They have done it. Our military's prepared to do it. Our government does it all the time. So, you are right to be skeptical. However, apparently the president of the United States has been shown some of these images and did confirm that yesterday. It appears that the reports are true. At least there's a lot of evidence that they are true. Fox News has gotten into one of the areas where children were said to have been beheaded, and the aftermath certainly makes it look as if that were indeed the case. So, yeah, I mean, it's savagery, and it's a brutality, the likes of which we have not seen. And Kirby is foreshadowing that something he probably knows, which is that the gruesome images will continue to come, and you need to be ready, because this is stuff that's pretty hard to look at. But I believe that the information is accurate based on several things that have been said. And if you get out on the internet and look beyond official sources, you see a lot of stuff. My friend Chris Hand this morning, I was listening to him, and he has made the case of saying we need to be careful and make sure that we verify this information. And you know what? He's not wrong about that. We need to be careful. Hamas will try to tell you one thing, and the Israelis will try to tell you another thing. And, the truth is probably somewhere between the two. But what I would say is, at least in this report and all the reports about the brutality, the viciousness of the attacks, one of the things that is being investigated, and there are some concerns about it, is that ISIS may have also been involved in some of these attacks, because I'm telling you, the tactics that were on display were very ISIS-like, and there have been some indications that maybe ISIS was also involved in this, but it's as yet not fully confirmed. So there's that. What about the money? The Biden administration will simply not say that we are going to freeze the money. Now, they keep talking about, well, we've done everything we can, and we have to approve it before any money is spent, and none of that money has moved. Well, why not just freeze it? Why won't you just say you're going to freeze it?
Why is it that you won't come out and say that the U.S. does not intend to let this money go to Iran?
Jackie, we've always had, since the beginning, we've always had the ability to provide oversight over the disbursement of these funds. We've always had the option. If we wanted it, to look at transactions and to make a call about whether we found it valid or not. That has not changed. And even now, as you and I are speaking, none of that money has been accessed by anybody. It's still all there.
Is it because we think that freezing it essentially again would complicate any negotiations with Iran or our ability to get Americans home in the future?
I'm not going to go into any more detail.
That was interesting. that he did not want to go any further. Why is it you won't freeze the money? Well, I have a feeling that they are talking to Iran and they're trying to get Iran to have some impact on what's happening. It's hard to know. And it's interesting that they continue to say that there is no hard evidence that Iran was involved in the planning of this attack by Hamas, though they have long been seen as supporters of Hamas, as well as Hezbollah in the north. So, I think that they are in negotiations with Iran, and if they were to come in and just freeze and seize that money, as I think they should, then maybe that diplomatic back door might slam shut very quickly. So I think that's what's going on, and I don't know what to think about that. I'm not sure I want us negotiating with Iran right now, because I think that a lot of what has happened is due to what is the support Iran has given to Hamas and to Hezbollah, and I'm not sure that we should be talking to them at all. Our aircraft carrier group is on the ground. Well, I say on the ground. They're out in the Eastern Mediterranean, and they are not far from the action. And we've been told that that was necessary to make sure that other parts of the region do not enter the fray. And I was initially thinking they were talking about Iran, but now I'm pretty sure what they're talking about is Lebanon and Syria. And so, apparently there was a scare the other day when somebody fired one round from the north into Israel, and it set off all kinds of sensors and alarms, and it showed that the system worked, but it really was not much more than just one badly aimed tank round, and it didn't mean anything wider was going on. Nobody's coming across. There were wild reports of more paratroopers, falling into the area, and that simply turned out not to be true. And so I think that they're looking very closely at Hezbollah, which is based in Lebanon, and the Israeli army has put about, tens of thousands of troops in the northern part of the country to protect in case somebody decides to get, some wild ideas to come in from the north. The one thing they don't want to do is fight a war on two fronts if they can help it, and that's why our military is there. I noticed that apparently the Israeli Air Force went over to Syria and put a big crater in the middle of an airport runway to keep them out of the fray, and not much has been said about that, but they indeed did that. So doing everything they can now to try to keep this from just being a war in the south. The vast majority of the resources that the Israeli army has are indeed in the southern part of the country, but tens of thousands are on the northern border as well. And it's a small country. It doesn't take long to move people from one side of that country to the other. So the 10,000 that are there could be backed up very quickly were there to be another front that opened up in Lebanon. So we're watching that as well. I want to talk in a moment about proportionality, because the word has been raised by the Biden administration. And I want to know, what does that mean? Having a proportionate response to what has happened. It's now 20 minutes past the hour, 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Grace Point Healthcare delivers medicine affordably with menu-style transparent pricing, so you will know how much it will cost before the healthcare is actually delivered. Smart Care plans start at $69 a month, and for that you get unlimited office visits and free basic labs for the entire year. And because they treat the whole family, even newborns, they can offer family plans as well. Now, if you were to marry that with a high-deductible insurance plan you may already have, this could end up saving you and your family a lot of money. At Grace Point, they take their time with each patient. They see you the same or next day. There are no long wait times or crowded wait rooms. They treat naturally whenever possible, and it is a military vet-owned practice. These are just some of the reasons why it's been voted the best primary care provider by Toast of Music City year after year after year. They want you to know that they do COVID testing and they have all kinds of treatment therapies that can help you get over it in a very short order. So if you think you have COVID, don't waste a moment. Get over there and get tested. Grace Point Healthcare on Main Street. Here's the number, 599-6868 to schedule a visit.
The United States now blocking Iran's access to $6 billion that was recently transferred to Qatar as a part of last month's prison swap. An officer involved shooting in Minnesota. Plus, we take a trip to the nation's capital to go get an update on the chaos going on in the House Republican leadership. That and more. 3:30 Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is 25 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock. I'm Brian Wilson. You're listening to The Drive. We've been talking about the situation in Israel and giving you an update. If you missed it, 27 Americans are now dead and 14 unaccounted for, some of those thought to be hostages. We are continuing to monitor the situation. I want to talk about the word proportionate. Because a statement that was issued by the Biden administration says, and I'm going to read this to you exactly, we remain focused on holding the terrorists accountable for their attacks, and we support Israel taking necessary and proportionate action to defend its country and protect its people. In doing so, U.S. citizens living, working, and traveling in Israel. So there you have that. what is proportionate? I mean, proportionate means equal. So whatever they did to Israel should do nothing more than that to the Hamas. I mean, how do you find out? How do you find proportionality when one side has wiped out entire communities and kidnapped women and raped them and abducted children, holding hostages, and had babies that were beheaded? That's genocide, is what they want on that side of the equation, and I don't think we want that on the other side of the equation. But I mean, what they're trying to do is they're telling the folks in Israel, take it easy, don't get too wound up here, make it proportionate. Well, I think if they make it proportionate, there won't be anything left in Gaza, is the way I feel about it. There is a word that, although the president has been nothing but publicly supportive of Israel and their right to respond in public, in private, they are apparently taking a more balanced tone, urging them to minimize civilian casualties. How do you do that in this situation? How do you defeat a terrorist organization that operates with civilian shields, who puts their weaponry and their operation centers in hospitals and schools and in churches? There's just no way to avoid the fact. And you say, well, okay, well, you can tell people to get out because because you can, with impunity, bomb any area that you want to bomb inside Gaza. You can tell them to get out of the area before you bomb them. And then, maybe they'll, that, of course, you're giving your enemy the opportunity to flee as well. But the folks with Hamas will kill people who try to run from the area. They want those human shields. They want them to die because it makes their case. Look, the savage Israelis have attacked a hospital. Well, yeah, because you put, a rocket, a mortar launcher right there in the middle of the hospital complex. What are you supposed to do? Just sit back and let those rockets keep coming in? So proportionality, listen, the Biden administration needs to back off of that. This is a matter that Israel shall be permitted to decide on its own. There is no proportionality. You go in there and you do whatever you have to do to annihilate and completely dismantle Hamas. And if so much as one Hezbollah person comes across the border, I think it should be on in the north as well. So we'll, every day we're going to have these kinds of updates. We've been warned, get ready. It could get worse before it gets better, and I think we're going to see some very ugly images coming out of that region. So as Kirby said, the one thing that I think he did say that I completely agree with, we need to brace ourselves for the things that we may see in the days ahead. Tomorrow, by the way, an international day of jihad, so called by the folks in Hamas and Palestinian groups. They want people on the street. I don't like this idea a lot, and I especially note that the Arab world looks at dates with a great deal of interest. They do things on, 9/11, for example, a perfect example. I want to point out, in case you haven't looked at the calendar and done the math yet, tomorrow is Friday the 13th. And I would not be near as concerned about this had it not been for the fact that our administration has let all kinds of bad people come across the border that we don't know where they are and we don't know what they're up to. So Friday the 13th will be a day of jihad. And I'm telling you, I hope I'm wrong. I want to be 1,000% wrong, but I have concerns about tomorrow. It's 3:30 now on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
.30, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Right now, 78 degrees on Music Row. We've got a traffic report plus a weather forecast coming up in about 5 minutes. The United States is now said to be blocking Iran's access to $6 billion that was recently transferred to Qatar as a part of last month's prison swap. It follows Iran's possible connection to the weekend's deadly attack in Israel. Ines de la Catera reports from Tel Aviv.
Hamas is, of course, backed by Iran. Some were saying Iran may have been involved here, that Iran may have financed this whole operation. Important to note that there is no flaming gun. There, publicly, no one has come out to directly link Iran to these attacks. But we are now seeing the U.S. taking steps here to ensure that Iran doesn't get that money, which is interesting. Where I think we're all curious to know what kind of intelligence that the U.S. has now.
And in Minnesota, 5 drug task officers were shot and wounded today while serving a search warrant. That suspect was arrested after a standoff. It lasted several hours. The officers' injuries were not life-threatening, and this took place about 80 miles northwest of Minneapolis. And over to the nation's capital, the House Republican leadership crisis continues without an end in sight. The GOP's conference picked to become the next House Speaker is said to be running out of time to seal the deal among his colleagues. Stephen Portnoy with the latest.
Steve Scalise remains short of the votes needed to win the gavel. House Republicans emerged from a closed-door meeting describing it merely as an airing of grievances amid the gridlock.
It's a waste of time.
In the end, I don't know what we accomplished.
Despite the conference's vote to nominate Scalise, a significant number of members say they'll still vote for Jim Jordan. The next steps aren't clear. Michael McCall, who chairs the House Foreign Affairs Committee, says the world is watching.
Chairman Xi talks about how democracy doesn't work, and we're proving him right.
And also some breaking news. This from CNN, an update on the amount of Americans that have been killed over in the attack of Hamas. 27 now is that number. 14 Americans still missing after that tragic attack. That's the latest news. Weather and traffic next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Hey everybody, Dan Mattis with Nashville's Morning News on WTN. I'm here at the Nashville Rescue Mission doing the interviews that I look forward to doing every single year. These are incredible stories of people who have had amazing recoveries. Thanks to this amazing facility, they are able to get clean and lead a more productive life. The date of our annual radiothon is going to be Monday, November 20th. Listen in and please donate. You can get more information at 99.7 WTN, including a link to the website for Nashville's Rescue Mission.
Let me tell you about the Wellness Institute of Nashville. Dr. Kevin Mitchell is the doctor that runs that place. He's my doctor, and he can be your doctor. And they can help you if you have pain in your back, your neck, your legs, your arms. You have numbness, you have weakness, you have a tingling. That's called neuropathy. Have you heard the terms disc bulging or disc herniation or spinal stenosis? Well, all of these are things that can be made better through the therapies available at the Wellness Institute of Nashville. And they're bringing back a special for new patients, so now there's really a good reason to take action. Are you losing quality of life? Just take advantage of the $23 new patient special, and you'll also get half off spinal decompression. Take advantage. You get your consultation, exam, and x-rays if one is needed, or you can bring your own MRI or x-rays. The first treatment will only be $23 because it's 2023. And then you'll be able to get half off spinal decompression, or if necessary, half off KT knee machine, which is sort of like spinal decompression. It's a new technology there that it's aimed to act like spinal decompression, but for the knee. Dr. Mitchell is a nation's leader in spinal decompression. Here's the number, 615-246-5009. Again, 615-246-5009. Learn more at painisbad.com. It is 38 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy, and you're listening to The Drive on this 12th day of October. Somebody just said that this is the anniversary of the Cole attack, USS Cole attack, which I had not thought about. I do remember because I was on duty in the Fox News Bureau in Washington on this day when it happened, and was one of the first people to take that information to air when we learned about it. It was pretty obvious then. It was, Osama bin Laden and his group, and then that was a heck of a day, and a really brutal attack against a U.S. warship. With regards to the previous segment, which was about what's going on with Israel, I just want to pass this story on to you. This comes from the Tennessee Star. And it's talking about what's going on here in our own home state. Tennessee State Representative and far-left U.S. Senate candidate Gloria Johnson, who's running against Marsha Blackburn, calls for a ceasefire following the brutal Hamas terrorist attack on Israel. I mean, it's interesting, She says, no one wins. Real people lose everything. We need to have an immediate ceasefire. Yeah, she wanted a ceasefire after Hamas attacked Israel, because she didn't want Israel to attack Hamas. They wiped out 1,200 people and dragged in dozens of hostages and did brutal, unthinkable things. And Gloria Johnson said, then let's just, let's not retaliate. Let's not go in there and try to, exact any revenge. No, a revenge is exactly what is in order. It's the only thing they understand in the Arab world. And Gloria Johnson, again, showing just how leftist she is. She doesn't come out and publicly support some Hamas, but she wanted a policy in place and a ceasefire in place that would have protected them. So know what you're getting there. In other local Tennessee news, we are going to hear on Monday arguments before the Tennessee Court of Appeals with regard to the release of the Covenant Shooters Manifesto. I say manifesto. Let's be honest about it. We have heard time and time again that it is a number of books, a number of writings that go back many years. And there are things that were said on the day of the shooting that were found in her car. But they have, of course, been tied up in court for ages. Normally, this is something that would have been publicly released by now. But it's been tied up in court. And the Tennessee Court of Appeals, their argument will be about a judge's decision to allow covenant church members, school and staff and parents to intervene in an effort to block the writings from being released to the public. Why they don't want this out, I can understand that it would be painful, but I would also say that we have a greater public interest in knowing about the thinking of the shooter at the time, and that, they have asked for action from the state legislature to make sure something like this can't happen again, but the state legislature was denied the ability to know what was in the writings, to find out what was the motivation for these horrific attacks. This has been stems from a lawsuit filed by the National Police Association against Nashville and Davidson County after a Freedom of Information Act request seeking records was rejected, saying, well, it's tied up in court. The thing is, I think that we should have it released, and the thing that has made it more complicated is the judge's decision to allow church members and school and staff in as people who had a say in whether or not it should be released. Freedom of Information Act, I think, is pretty clear about these things. And I think maybe the judge, I don't know what the motivation for the judge was, but I think the judge erred in that decision. I do have a great respect for the parents. I do have a great respect for those who have said, we really don't want this released, and I know why they feel that way. But the greater public good, I think, would be held in having it released in some way to the public so we could know more about I'm always going to be in favor of more information, not less. I'm always going to be in the favor of transparency. And I just wonder why in the world this unusual action was taken by church members, school and staff, to intervene. What is it they think is going to be in there? I mean, it is true that the shooter was a student at that school many years ago. Is there something in there that they don't want to come out? Is a fair question, I think, but we can't know that until we have access to find out what the real reason for the shooting was, what motivated. And maybe there's nothing that motivated that makes any sense, but we have a right to try to find that out. So I hope that the Court of Appeals will stick to the original thinking of the Freedom of Information Act, which says that government action and investigation should be transparent when possible. There is not going to be a trial here. If there's any indication there's going to be a trial here, then somebody needs to say so. But I don't get the sense that that's going to happen. TDOT says that closing one of Nashville's homeless encampments cost roughly $166,000. This is behind the old TA truck stop in downtown Nashville and is part of the Phase 2 of Nashville's homeless plan. TDOT started its cleanup on Friday, and Metro Office of Homeland Services said 32 people in the camp have a new place to call home. The rough estimate of the cost of this procedure is $166,950. Your taxpayer at work, your taxpayer dollars at work, why it costs so much, I don't know. You're talking about trucks and you're talking about a bulldozer. Does it cost that much to run a bulldozer in today? I don't know. But it seemed like you're bulldozing the area and you're picking up a bunch of stuff and throwing it in the back of trucks. Seemed a little high, $166,000 for that one way or the other. I am really glad to see the homeless encampments being cleaned up. And in a thoughtful way where people who truly do need help can find another place to live that doesn't trash our city. I mean, their right to exist, and have a life is fine, but the people who live in this town and pay their taxes also have a right to live in a community that is safe and doesn't look like a trash heap. NES, if you are an NES customer, you are going to get another rate increase in October. Oh, joy. Their goal is to try to limit the increases to around 3 to 5% every 3 to 5 years. The cost of serving more than 400,000 people who get their electricity from NES. They saw a 3% rate increase 1 year ago. So if you get another 3%, it's 6. If you get a 5%, it's 8 over 2 years. And they suggest that if this is a struggle for you, think about applying for balanced billing so that you even out your payments throughout the year. But I mean, look, I'm telling you, the cost of electricity, like everything else, is going up. I'm going to get into this in a greater way here in just a short while, and you have no doubt heard that the inflation rate went up to 3.2%. You know what it is in Nashville? You know what it is in Tennessee? It's different than the national average. Our inflation rate, our real inflation rate here in Tennessee, 4.6%, almost 5%. So, we are feeling the hit in a bigger way than other parts of the country for reasons that are not entirely clear to me. You heard it in the newscast, and because Mac Morey's on top of all that stuff, but street racing has caused 6 deaths in Nashville so far, and police are trying to crack down on this. And they got helicopters, and I don't know why you would want to try to run from police, because the helicopters can chase you everywhere you want to go. But they now say this is a serious problem. If you show up for the races, they're going to charge you with the minimum of trespassing and rioting. They have all the group names. They know who are in charge of each of the groups, and the street races, they call them takeovers, because they often happen on highways and industrial lots, and people watching form circles called pits, and the riders, which are called sliders, get in the middle and start doing their thing, burning out and doing wheelies and not wheelies, but burnouts and donuts. That's the word I'm looking for. They hang out the windows firing weapons at times, and they'll shoot bottle rockets. Property gets damaged. People get hurt. 6 people have died in Nashville this year alone because of street racing. Wow. I mean, that's a pretty amazing statistic and scary. The police are giving the folks who do this kind of thing fair warning that if you want to do that, that's all good and fine, but be ready because we're going to come at you and we're going to do everything we can to put you behind bars, which of course they'll get their bail and they'll be out in an hour, but nonetheless, they're going to try. It is 48 minutes now, make it almost 49 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk. I want to talk to you about gold, which has been used as money for millennia. It is a tried and true store of value and has been consistent across generations. One expert said that generational wealth has three components: land, art, and precious metals. Well, land and art can be hard to get and evaluate, but precious metals like gold, platinum, and silver are a practical solution. Maybe you have some gold that was given to you and you're not sure what it is worth, or you're just curious about precious metals and want to learn more. Why don't you start by going to visit my friends at Nashville Gold and Coin? That's right. They set up a one-on-one appointment. You go in one-on-one, and they talk to you about precious metals. If you bring in coins, they'll appraise them, tell you what they think they are worth. Listen, they're always available to discuss your options and educate you on the precious metals market. So do what I did. Go to Nashville's real money source, Nashville Gold and Coin. That's NashvilleGoldandCoin.com, where you can set up your one-on-one appointment. Again, that's NashvilleGoldandCoin.com.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. I've been teaching investing on Nashville airwaves for over 20 years with the Investor Coaching Show. And in that time, I taught a lot about how markets work and how we invest money and academic principles of investing money. But I've also talked an awful lot about how to avoid the mistakes that people often make with their money. Think about it. A lot of people sold out of the market at the worst time when COVID struck, or when TARP happened, the Troubled Asset Relief Program, or gold, they invested in that at the worst time. Bailing out of the market because they were worried about Y2K or 9/11, or jumping into energy stocks, or jumping into cryptocurrency. One of the things that I like to do is educate investors, because I believe that the more educated you are, the more confident you are, and the more confident you are, the more successful you can be as an investor. Now, I not only do that on our radio show, but we do that in our offices around the Nashville region, 10 offices. To learn more about our approach to investing and financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call. Or you can call 615-851-1950.
An update on the war in Israel. Andy Ogles joins WTN and gives the latest on the House Speaker race and a missing teenager in Tennessee. Those stories and more at 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Well, let's take a look at the markets today. Not a good day on the Dow or the other indices. Dow Industrials down 173, the S&P down 27, NASDAQ down 85. A great concern over the inflation data that came out today. Meanwhile, oil is up slightly, just a short bit. There are there've been some relaxation on the pressure about oil because of the Saudis opening up the tap just a little bit. Gold, however, continues to be something to watch. It's down a little bit today. An ounce of gold will cost you $1,881.70. Let's check in with Ty Draper over at Beacon Capital Management for more on what's going on with regard to the economy.
Brian, more than 71 million Americans on Social Security will receive a 3.2% cost of living adjustment in 2024. This is about half a point higher than the 20-year average of 2.6 and will equate to about $50 a month per payment for most recipients. To put this in perspective, the 2023 increase was 8.7%, almost 3 times higher. But much to the chagrin of recipients, much of this payment, however, will be eaten up in Medicare monthly premiums, which will more than likely increase from $164 a month to $174. But this increase may not be enough to lessen the blow of inflation, as the new CPI data shows an increase of 0.4 this month, which was more than analysts project and could lead the Fed to making more increases in interest rates and more volatile markets.
All right. Thank you very much. Learn more about all the things that they can do for you over at Beacon Capital Management by going to their website, askbeaconnow.com. A couple of other things with the economy today. Under Biden, since he took the oath of office, prices have gone up 17.7%, and real wages have gone down 3.2%. So you're about $20% in the hole since the president took office. It is now 57 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is 4 o'clock. I'm Mac Maury with your top story. 79 degrees right now on Music Row. Going to be a sunny and clear rest of the day into this evening, and some showers expected tomorrow, headed in to the rest of the weekend as well. Complete weather and traffic report in 5 minutes. Michelle Franzen starting us out with an update on the war in Israel.
Israel's prime minister and his rivals putting aside differences that have deeply divided Israelis the past few years and forming an emergency unity government to fight Hamas. More than 1,200 now confirmed dead in Israel in the Hamas attacks, including 27 Americans. 14 Americans are still missing, and among the hostages being held by Hamas militants in Gaza. Secretary of State Antony Blinken in Israel vowing U.S. support and urged leaders in the region to help stop the bloodshed and secure the release of hostages. He'll be speaking with those leaders.
Across each of these engagements, we'll continue pressing countries to help prevent the conflict from spreading and to use their leverage with Hamas to immediately and unconditionally release the hostages.
The death toll in Gaza also rising. Gaza Health Ministry officials say more than 1,500 Palestinians have died from Israeli airstrikes targeting Hamas holdouts. The UN Relief Agency says hospitals are overwhelmed with women and children.
And the number of Americans killed in those attacks has now increased to 27, 14 Americans still unaccounted for. Now over to the nation's capital. Tennessee Representative Andy Ogles joined WTN's The Matt Murphy Show today to give an update on the speaker's race as they conducted another closed-door meeting today.
So we had this 2.5-hour-long meeting. It was kind of a place for people to state their position and offer their grievances. I would argue that it wasn't productive. Because we need to be voting. We need to be voting on a speaker, and here we are. It's 3:30 Eastern time on a Thursday, and we haven't cast a single vote that's binding for speaker. That's a problem.
Ogles said that Jim Jordan is the candidate who has his vote, and in the latest vote, there were 113 for Scalise, 99 for Jordan. And he went on to say that they tried to, quote, cram the House yesterday and rush them into a decision that they weren't ready to make. Ogles said that this race could be expanded beyond these two and brought up names such as Mark Green, Jody Arrington, or Mike Johnson. The representative said that he will be drafting up a letter today pleading for fellow representatives to stay in D.C. over the weekend to try and get this figured out. And a missing teenager in Tennessee, a Murfreesboro teen, has been missing for almost a week. Officials believe that 18-year-old Elijah Miller could possibly now be in another state. News 2 reports that Miller was last seen on Friday, October 6th, when he told his mom that he was going to be gone for the weekend at an airsoft event. Police described Miller as autistic but highly functioning, and they say that he could possibly be in Ohio. He's now in the National Missing Person Database. That is the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Good afternoon. It's hour number 2 of the drive, 4:06 on this 12th day of October, and another just absolutely gorgeous day outside. This is the best time of year, I think, here in Middle Tennessee. It's nice, warm, subtly, not brutally warm, not hot, but just warm days.
It's a little too warm for my liking.
Just a little abundant sunshine and then some coolness at night. I like that a lot. Let's head on down to the swamp as we start off hour number 2 of the drive. A lot of things going on in the swamp. A lot of things not going on in the swamp, actually, I probably should say. With regard to the House of Representatives, we still don't have a functioning House of Representatives. They went in there on Tuesday. This is now Thursday, and they still haven't taken a vote on who might be the next speaker because, quite frankly, they don't have it figured out yet. Steve Scalise was the person that came forth yesterday after the closed-door session, but I've learned more about that closed-door session, which I think is very interesting. We'll get to that in a moment. But the bottom line is, when it came to getting 217 votes on the floor of the House, he doesn't have it. The Republican conference is still divided against itself. They can't make up their mind who they want, and they are now trying to figure out. I would say that yesterday was a good day for Steve Scalise and that he got a majority vote in conference, but since that time, there has been growing support for Jim Jordan. And so it's really unclear what is going to take place and who's going to be the speaker. Mark Green, from Tennessee, who we think very highly of here on this program, has said and been quoted as saying, if we can't figure it out pretty soon, maybe somebody else needs to step up. A lot of people actually believe that Mark Green would be a good person to step up. He would get a lot of support. But so far, that has not happened. So what is likely to happen? Here's just a couple of headlines from CNBC. Steve Scalise does not appear to have the votes to become speaker as the GOP remains divided. From thehill.com, GOP opposition to Scalise for speaker sharpens. Live coverage, and they focus on Andy Ogles and Keith Self, who became the latest House Republicans to say they would not vote for Scalise under any circumstance, would support Jim Jordan. And so you heard Andy Ogles earlier on the news and on Matt Murphy's program as well. Look, there's one guy that I turn to because I know him well and I worked with him intimately at Fox News. He was my producer when I covered Capitol Hill many times, and he was called a beat producer, and he's now a full-fledged correspondent for Fox News. His name is Chad Pergram. Or as my nickname for him was Chadley. I used to, hey, Chadley, what's going on? Well, he's got this thing locked down. And I'm telling you, what I've learned here in reading this, I think is such good intelligence. I thought I would just read large portions of what he calls the Hitchhiker's Guide to Why Steve Scalise May Never Become the Speaker of the House. Hard to understate the problem House Speaker designate Steve Scalise of Louisiana may face in his bid to win the speakership. I don't think he's going to get it, said one senior House Republican member. He came in so low. Senior House leadership sources were utterly shocked and dismayed Wednesday night at the resistance by rank-and-file Republicans to potentially electing House Speaker designate Steve Scalise after the Speaker won the GOP conference nod behind closed doors on a secret ballot. Scalise continued to work individually with Republicans to gain their support. There's a long way to go. The fight could take days. However, a lot of things have to do with a way of coming together quickly on Capitol Hill, and there could still be a floor vote on Thursday. I think that probably is not going to happen now. He had as many as 150 ballots, but that was just barely enough. He came in ultimately at 113. And in order to win the majority of the conference, he had to come in at 112. So he got one vote more than he needed to get the majority vote. But here's the thing that makes that complicated, and you probably haven't heard this anywhere before. I think it's brilliant analysis. When you look at where Scalise's support came from, he scored the votes of the 3 non-voting delegates to Congress who are part of the Republican conference, but who cannot vote for speaker on the floor. See, if you're a delegate, you're not a full-fledged member of the House. you represent and you have the right to speak on the floor, you don't have the right to vote on the floor because you aren't a member of a delegation that comes from a state. We're talking about delegates Amada Radawagan of American Samoa, James Moylan of Guam, and Resident Commissioner Jennifer Gonzalez Colon of Puerto Rico. They can vote in conference. They cannot vote on the floor. Fox is told that the fact that Scalise won because of the support of 3 delegates infuriated some House Republicans. Those members are eligible to vote in the conference, but they lack a floor vote because they are not full members, as I mentioned. As it stands now, there's more opposition to Scalise's speakership than there was opposition to McCarthy's. In essence, the House appears to be in worse shape than it was when this whole thing started. Fox has also learned that a few Republicans are trying to explore ways to potentially empower House Speaker pro tempore Patrick McHenry with temporary powers through mid-November. Such a scenario would get the House operational for the time being, prospectively avert a government shutdown, and buy time to elect a new speaker. However, it is not without controversy, I will add, and I don't know that they're going to be able to get that one across the goal line. The other option is to resurrect McCarthy, according to one GOP source, but how would you do that seems unclear right now. That is the analysis of one Chad Pergram from Fox News, who really, honestly, if you care about this stuff and you're not following Chad Pergram, you're not getting the best information. I mean, this guy is so plugged in. He's just absolutely the best on the beat, bar none. Other problems, let's see, here we go. MTG and Mace and other Republicans who could stop Scalise from getting the ballot. Bob Good of Virginia, Nancy Mace, South Carolina, Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia, Thomas Massey of Kentucky, Max Miller of Ohio, Chip Roy of Texas, Barry Moore of Alabama, Michael Cloud of Texas, Troy Niels, also of Texas, Lloyd Smucker, a Republican from Pennsylvania, Carlos Jimenez from Florida, George Santos, Republican, and Lauren Boebert, a Republican from Colorado, said that they would not vote for Scalise under any circumstances. Let me just run that. Let me add those up real quick on the fly. 1, 2, let's see. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, plus Ogle's 15. It sounds like it's going the wrong way. You cannot become speaker if that stands. Why did they go against Scalise? Marjorie Taylor Greene said, I like Scalise. I like him so much that I want him to be well. You know, he's suffering from a bout of blood cancer, and that has been something that has been in the back of the minds of many members as they cast their ballot. So I don't know when this thing is going to get resolved. I don't think that a vote is likely this week. Scalise is still working behind the scenes to try to get people to come on board, trying to find out what it would take. But it sounds like to me that a lot of people have said, I just can't vote for Scalise under any circumstances. Jim Jordan, I think, is the more conservative of the two candidates, and a lot of conservatives feel like they just can't go for Scalise. It's not that they dislike Scalise, it's just that they like Jordan better. I think that's probably true. So I don't see this thing getting resolved anytime soon. And without a functioning speaker, the House of Representatives cannot take action. And we've got all kinds of things. Tick tock, tick tock. We need to get a budget, put together. We got to get the appropriations bills passed. I think that ship has sailed. I don't think there's any way now they can meet the deadline, even though it was, when it started, some 45 days away. I think they've lost valuable time, and I don't think they can catch up. I think they were going to need every bit of that 45 days to get it done, and now we're not doing anything. I really regret the fact that we don't have a functioning House of Representatives. I have a feeling that if something really happened in the way of a national emergency, that could be resolved in about an hour, that they would do something, even if it was only temporary, to get the House reorganized. But short of that, I don't see it happening anytime soon. And if Scalise can't get the votes, at some point he has to stand down and say, I can't do it. I can't get it across the goal line. And then, as Mark Green has suggested, somebody else will have to step up. Who will that be? Not clear. Not clear at all. Donald Trump has said that he will not support Scalise in the speaker's race, or is not expected to support him. That according to Breitbart.com. And it's just waning. It's not getting anywhere. It's not getting any better. The situation we don't see a solution. The solution here at the moment is unforeseeable. That's the bottom line. House Republicans, though, were very vocal about one thing. They're not happy with the effort that will be made by the Biden administration to bring forth a package to aid Israel and also couple it with aid to Ukraine. House Republicans don't like that idea. Several House Republicans, according to the Daily Caller, oppose an aid package to Israel for its war against Hamas, and that includes also funding for Ukraine. It's not that they don't believe Israel is worthy of support. It's just they don't like it being tied to funding for Ukraine, saying that the two threats are completely different in their size, scope, aims, and tactics. The Biden administration on Wednesday said it would present a military aid package to Congress that includes both, and also support for Taiwan, as well as funding for security at the U.S. border. That's the sweetener that they want to add to get some of the other stuff. Several House Republicans are unwilling to support the proposal that would appropriate foreign military aid to both Israel and Ukraine, since Ukraine there is a much more controversial than it was before. The support of Ukraine seems to be waning in Congress. People say, well, how did they get all that money? Well, because a lot of Republicans voted for it in the House and in the Senate. And there are a lot of Republicans who would continue to support it in the House and Senate. So, as long as that is the case, that money will keep flowing to Ukraine. But I do get the sense that the support for additional funds to Ukraine is starting to wane quite a bit. Bob Menendez is a member of the Senate. He's a Democrat from New Jersey. He's been accused of many things. He's been indicted recently on a number of different charges. And now there is some question. He was, by the way, charged with violating the Foreign Agents Registration Act, FARA. He was the former head of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, and he stands accused in the indictment of having conspired to work on behalf of the government of Egypt. That's right, Egypt, while sitting members of the Senate and the chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee. He stepped down from that committee position last month while he fights charges that he says he is not guilty of. Others charged in the real indictment include his wife. Bob and Nadine Menendez and a guy by the name of Wael Hanna were charged with conspiracy for a public official to act as a foreign agent. And so they've all said that they're not guilty and said they will fight them. But it is interesting that at this time where the Mideast is such a big item in the news, that Bob Menendez, we are reminded, was accused of acting as a foreign agent for the country of Egypt, while also chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. It is now 20 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Exciting news for you. Many of you who've lived here for a long time, you know that Eurofix has been in Middle Tennessee. It's been the place to go for European car repair now for some 24 years. And we've all watched them grow over time. Well, I love watching a hometown business take off. And now the folks at Eurofix are proud to announce a fifth location. You've heard me talk about it before, Mount Juliet. They have a location in Mount Juliet for Eurofix on Mount Juliet Road, right across the street from the Dairy Queen. Eurofix can now serve you in Franklin, 100 Oaks, Murfreesboro, Belmead, and now in Mount Juliet. It's great getting to watch a small company that started as a small-town mechanic in a barn in the backyard of a single-wide trailer now grow to 5 locations, repairing thousands of cars each month. At Eurofix, you get a 3-year nationwide warranty and a free loaner car with every repair appointment. Just call 844-EUROFIX or visit myEurofix.com. That's myEurofix.com.
Hey everybody, Dan Mattis with Nashville's Morning News on WTN. I'm here at the Nashville Rescue Mission doing the interviews that I look forward to doing every single year. These are incredible stories of people who have had amazing recoveries. Thanks to this amazing facility, they are able to get clean and lead a more productive life. The date of our annual radiothon is going to be Monday, November 20th. Listen in and please donate. You can get more information at 99.7 WTN, including a link to the website for Nashville's Rescue Mission.
An update on that war in Israel, plus the Money News Report. We find out what happened today on Wall Street. All that and more coming up 30 minutes after the hour of 4 o'clock right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Here's a little tidbit that I think is very interesting. It has to do with the economy. We talk about the inflation report that came out today. Monthly inflation rose by 0.4. And you say, well, that's not much. Well, when you consider it went up 0.6 in August, that means that since August, the inflation has gone up a full 1%. That's showing that inflation is heading in the wrong direction. And when you really look at it, since Biden raised his hand and took the oath of office, prices are up a total of 17.7%. That's a healthy hike. Meanwhile, real wages are down by 3.2%. So since Biden took office, you're 20% in the hole because things cost more and you're not making as much relative to the cost of living. And then there's this. And so you think, well, those are national numbers, right? By the way, inflation fueled by higher rent and gasoline costs around the nation. But I found this analysis in the Washington Examiner, which really raised an eyebrow. I think this is very interesting stuff. The much-anticipated September inflation report released Thursday showed key regional differences in how much prices are rising. Listen to this. Of course, it's 3.7 inflation rate, and that's a little higher than they expected. But in New England, they're doing okay. They're only at 2.5% in Maine, New Hampshire, and Massachusetts. The Mid-Atlantic states, as such as New Jersey and New York, they're down 3.2%. So it's not as bad in New England. Where is it the worst? Right here. I mean, we are right in the worst of the highest inflation in the country. The South is taking the worst beating from inflation. Overall, inflation is running at 4.2% in the region. We're talking about the entire South. But in Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, and Kentucky, it's even worse, coming in at about 4.6% annually. That's on pace. That's nearly 5%. That hurts. So we here in the South, including Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama, and Kentucky, a lot of people within the sound of my voice are hearing this. You know the pain because you're going to the grocery store every day. You're filling up your tank. Inflation coming in at almost 5%, 4.6%. The West Coast is not that bad. The Midwest is not that bad. There's only one place where it seems to be worse, and Tampa, Florida, grappling with towering 6.7% inflation, nearly double the national average. Denver, Colorado's at 5.4%, and San Bernardino at 5%. So Colorado and a couple of cities in California and Tampa all seeing higher than national average in inflation, probably, I'm guessing, due to rental cost or the cost of housing. So one thing that, when you hear this national number, well, it was only 0.4%, and we've got inflation down to 3.2. Well, not here. Our inflation rate, for reasons that are not completely clear to me in the South, and particularly here in Tennessee, are higher, much higher than the national average. Your Social Security check is going to go up if you're getting one next year, a rising 3.2%, effective in January of 2024. Let's see. I've got the numbers here. In 2018, it went up 2.8%, 2019, 1.6%, 2020, 1.3%, 2021, 5.9%, 2022, an election year, it went up 8.7%. So the 2024 COLA increase is 3.2%, but that's just the beginning of the year. Watch them go up dramatically just before we get to election time. That's the way that always works. All right, and then finally, 9,000 Ford Kentucky plant workers have gone on strike. This is a big truck plant in Kentucky. It has joined the UAW strike against the big three automakers, with more than 8,000 workers in Kentucky walking off the job to take part of the ongoing strike. And this was a surprise. Ford didn't see this one coming. This is one of Ford's most profitable operations because it's where they build trucks. Generates $25 billion a year in revenue. And they make their Super Duty pickups as well as the Ford Lincoln Navigator and Ford Expedition SUVs. This will put a dent in the company's full-year profits. This is getting tough. This is going after the heart of Ford. But that happened today. 9,000 Ford Kentucky truck plant workers are now out on strike. It's 3:30 now on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
.30, I'm Mac Morey with your top stories. Right now, 78 degrees in Nashville. Looking at the forecast this weekend, could be a little wet. Got a slight chance of showers starting tomorrow night. Should stay clear for the remainder of tonight. Full weather forecast, the latest traffic report headed your way in 5 minutes. Iran's year-long support for Hamas has now cost that country $6 billion in humanitarian aid, at least for now. Andy Field explains why.
The United States refreezing those Iranian oil funds, not because there's evidence Iran helped plan the Hamas attack. Instead, the White House says,
we're not walking away from the fact that Iran has supported Hamas and other terrorist networks.
National Security spokesman John Kirby not saying if or when the U.S. will release those Iranian funds, which President Biden had traded to free U.S. hostages.
And the number of Americans killed in the attacks has now increased to 27, 14 Americans still unaccounted for. Now over to the Money News. Daria Albinger walks us through Wall Street today.
Stocks slipped today. The S&P 500 falling 0.6%, breaking a 4-day winning streak. The Dow lost 0.5%, and the Nasdaq Composite gave back 0.6%. Mortgage rates climbing to 7.57%, their highest levels since the turn of the millennium. Consumer prices rose 0.4% from August and 3.7% from the year before. The Federal Reserve uses the core CPI number as a key inflation measure. The number excludes food and energy that climbed by 4.1% from last year, the smallest increase in 2 years. Social Security benefits will increase by 3.2% in 2024. The average recipient will receive $50 more each month. Nearly 9,000 Ford Auto Workers walked off the job this week in solidarity with other members of the United Auto Workers Union who have been on the picket lines for nearly a month.
And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather on the way. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Well, how are you faring in this rough and tumble market? The experts at Beacon Capital Management understand it can be a little scary, but here's the thing. Beacon Capital Management has a plan to assess where you are and help you make any mid-course corrections that might be needed. I mean, wouldn't it be great to have peace of mind that you're on the right path? Beacon can provide you that reassurance, and it starts with a simple phone call. Here's the number, 615-488-9303. The experts at Beacon will take it from there. You give them some information, they'll get back to you. I mean, you have nothing to lose in this exercise except for all the worry you have about whether you're making the right investments for your retirement. So get started today by calling 615-488-9303. At the end of the process, you'll be able to rest easy knowing you have a plan that meets all your retirement goals. Replace the worry with confidence that you're on the right path. Again, that number is 615-488-9303. The experts at Beacon stand ready to take your stress away, and you can learn more at askbeaconnow.com. It is 37 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy. Hope you're having a great afternoon. I think the weather is just spectacular, but Chris, who's a bit crotchety about it, says it's a tad too hot.
I could do with a few degrees cooler. That's just me, though.
Yeah, I know.
I'll get my wish next week.
Yeah, it's going to be nice next week.
Yeah.
And I, even though it's going to get a little cooler on Sunday, it's still not, it's not bad.
You know what time it is, though? Especially in the evenings? It's about hot tub time.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got mine filled up, ready to go. Yep, I do. Listen, let's talk about the 2024 campaign and where things are. We got some new numbers out today from a Fox News poll, which are interesting. They don't go along with a lot of the other polls that I'm seeing, but I think you'll find it interesting nonetheless. Let me go through all this. First of all, Trump still continues to trounce all other Republicans who are running for the nomination. They have it at Trump 59, DeSantis 13, Haley 10, Ramaswamy 7, Pence 4, Christie 3, Scott 1, Hutchison 1. Trump leads DeSantis by 46 points for the Republican nominee on a nationwide basis. Of course, that's not how we nominate our candidates, but I've not seen any place where Trump is in trouble. Trust me, he's doing really well, and it looks like he will be the nominee unless something happens that we don't foresee. But when you get to the general election, the folks at Fox and their polling data have it still very tight. Trump 48, Biden 49, Biden leading by 1. Now that is, you often see something like it where it's Trump plus 1 or it's Biden plus 1 on many, many polls. But there have been a number of other polls that have shown with Trump getting a pretty good lead. One that's really out there that says it's about that he leads by about 10 points. There have been some others that said 4 or 5, somewhere in that range. So this one is not alone. There are a lot of polls out there that show Trump up by 1 or Biden up by 1. That's within the margin of error, and you would normally call races like that too close to call. So that's what Fox says, that right now, if the election were held today, Biden would win by 1%. But again, there are others that say that Trump is doing quite well, especially, as we'll show you in a moment, in the battleground states. But let's look at other possibilities. Should somehow DeSantis become the Republican nominee, DeSantis would win by 2. Should somehow Haley become the nominee, Haley would win over Biden by 4, according to the Fox News polling. And then there's an interesting thing here. I don't know what to think about it, but when you add Cornel West into the mix, Biden loses 6, Trump loses 3, West pulls in 9% of the vote, and Trump would win by 2% with that third-party candidacy. Now, there's probably going to be another third-party candidacy out there ere long, and it'll be interesting to see who gets pulled from the most, whether it's Trump or Biden. But right now, in a three-way race, which is what we have, they have Trump winning by 2 if you add in Cornel West. So I think that's all pretty interesting. None of the other polls that Emerson, here we go. Emerson, we talked about this the other day, some of these battleground states. Wisconsin, Trump would win against Biden in Wisconsin by 2. In Missouri, Trump would win by 17. And then in Kansas, Trump would win by 16. Not surprising that. This story, Daily Caller says, President Joe Biden is trailing former President Donald Trump by 9 points in the crucial battleground state of Pennsylvania, which the Democrat won in 2020. Trump beat Biden 45-36 among Pennsylvania voters in this most recent poll, and 8% remain undecided. This is an Emerson College survey that we talked about. I think we talked about this a little bit yesterday. Biden won the state in 2020 for president by, about 1.5 points. But Trump won it against Hillary in 2016 by 1.2 points. So for him to be a point ahead, 9 points in the absolutely critical battleground state of Pennsylvania would be quite something, given the fact that the year he beat Hillary, he only won the state by 1.2%. That's something else. Biden has a 31% approval rating in Pennsylvania, with 51% disapproving. A series of recent polls indicate Trump has a leg up on Biden in key battleground states like Michigan, Georgia, North Carolina. A new Reuters Ipsos survey, we've talked about this, Michigan, Georgia, North Carolina, Arizona, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. Average all those together, Trump leads Biden 41 to 35%. If he wins those battleground states at that margin, it will be a big thing. That would put him perhaps in landslide territory. Again, it's early. I don't want you to get too excited. But I mean, this number out of Pennsylvania, if it is accurate, is really quite something worth discussing. It doesn't seem to matter who Trump picks as his running mate. And that is we've often been told, if you're a political advisor, you often say, if you can get somebody that helps you in a certain state, or if you can get someone that helps you with a perceived weakness, that's a helpful thing as vice president. But otherwise, most people don't care too much who the main guy picks. A strong majority of former President Donald Trump's grassroots supporters, 57%, say they are not concerned about his choice for running mate in the 2024 presidential election. This is according to a Rasmussen survey. Rasmussen pollsters offered those surveyed a number of options for Trump's potential vice president, and nobody seemed to really move the needle one way or the other. Only 13% answered they would be more likely to vote for Trump if he selected a female candidate. 8% said they would like it if he chose a black person, and a further 15% argued they're more likely to vote with him if he chose a non-politician as his running mate. Really, nobody really moving the needle in a big way, so they don't really seem to care too much about that. I still think that one of the biggest issues of the 2024 campaign will be what is going on our southern border. We went to a whole list of things yesterday that showed just how important that was, both to Republicans and independents, and even a fair number of Democrats. Interesting interview this morning with the former director of Homeland Security at the time of Obama's presidency. His name was Jay Johnson. I didn't think much of him at the time, but he was on Fox and Friends this morning, or he's on another show this morning, and he said that he really worries about the border given what's going on in the world right now. Listen very carefully. This guy served as the director of Homeland Security during the Obama administration.
There are a lot of people entering our southern border right now, thousands and thousands. It's a hemispheric move north, bigger than anything we've ever seen. And the challenge for our Border Patrol, for our Customs, for DHS, for the FBI, is to try to keep up. Unfortunately, as you know, the system is broken, it's horribly backlogged, and there are a whole lot of people entering this country who we cannot identify.
How does that make you feel? I mean, this guy's a Democrat, and he's sending up a little flare there that, we've got a problem on our southern border because we don't know who we let into the country. We can't identify these people, and more importantly, we don't know where they are. Well, we know where John Fetterman was last night. Have you heard this one, Chris? This is unbelievable. John Fetterman's on Colbert. And now we watch Stephen Colbert, so the rest of the world doesn't have to. And so he's got his little iPad there because he can't hear questions. He can see them printed out on his iPad. He's got a special app for that. And so he's doing the interview, and he's looking down at the iPad, but he's answering, I think, pretty well, at least more coherently than he has in the past. And without one touch of irony, John Fetterman said the following.
You all should need to know that America is not sending their best and brightest, to Washington, D.C.
Bingo.
Yeah. Sometimes you literally just can't believe, these people are making the decisions that are, determining the government here. It's actually scary.
Bingo. Yeah, it's scary. It's scary to me too. But I mean, he doesn't seem to understand that he is the perfect example of the statement that he just made.
You all should need to know that America is not sending their best and brightest,
which I think is just precious. Yeah, talk about being woefully unself-aware.
Was he wearing a hoodie, by the way?
Yes, he was.
Of course
he went on the show wearing his traditional shorts and a hoodie, tennis shoes, no socks.
That's just wrong.
It's just wrong. Disrespecting Stephen Colbert, which I guess is okay. I don't really have any real problem with that, one way or the other. Just blissfully unaware that in saying that, many people are thinking, yes, and you are the prime example of that. Oh, my gosh. Oh, my gosh. It is now 48 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. I've been teaching investing on Nashville airwaves for over 20 years with the Investor Coaching Show. And in that time, I taught a lot about how markets work and how we invest money and academic principles of investing money. But I've also talked an awful lot about how to avoid the mistakes that people often make with their money. Think about it. A lot of people sold out of the market at the worst time when COVID struck, or when TARP happened, the Troubled Asset Relief Program, or gold, they invested in that at the worst time. Bailing out of the market because they were worried about Y2K or 9/11 or jumping into energy stocks or jumping into cryptocurrency. One of the things that I like to do is educate investors, because I believe that the more educated you are, the more confident you are, and the more confident you are, the more successful you can be as an investor. Now, I not only do that on our radio show, but we do that in our offices around the Nashville region, 10 offices. To learn more about our approach to investing and financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call, or you can call 615-851-1950.
The latest on the war between Israel and Hamas. No new Speaker of the House to be elected today, and police on the lookout for a person who could be connected to a fatal shooting in Nashville. That and more, 5 o'clock right here. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Well, if you have just jumped into your truck or your car, if you're lucky, it's a truck. I mean, honestly, we all know how cool trucks are. You may not have heard the latest very quickly. We now have a death toll of 27 Americans dead in Israel and 14 Americans unaccounted for. Some of those are known to be hostages, but we don't know exactly how many hostages Hamas holds with American citizenship. So the problem is they move them around, and quite frankly, even if you could talk to them on the phone, they don't know where they are because they've been blindfolded as they move from one place to the other. So that is the problem there, a very difficult scenario. How do you get the hostages out if you can't figure out where they are? And if you go in, do you run the risk of putting their lives at danger? Boy, I'm telling you, tough deal there. The other news with regard to Washington is we still don't have a Speaker of the House. It looks like support for Scalise is fading. Support for Jordan may be getting stronger, but nobody has 217 votes, and they won't go to the floor of the House and vote for Speaker until they do. And so it doesn't look like this is going to get resolved anytime soon. I don't see it happening today. I don't see it happening tomorrow. It just doesn't look like it's going to happen for a while until somebody can get to 217. And it may be neither Scalise or Jordan. It may be somebody else. So we continue to watch that. We want to send out a good word to Chris Stapleton. We all love Chris Stapleton. Man, is that guy talented. Let me tell you. He apparently has had to cancel a series of his shows due to illness. And apparently it has to do with bronchitis and laryngitis. Here's what he said. To all my friends in Corpus Christi, Houston, and Lafayette. Yeah, in Louisiana, they call it Lafayette, not Lafayette.
Who's wrong?
I know, because Lafayette is the correct pronunciation, but here it's Lafayette. I know. I don't want to get the people in Lafayette all upset with me. I'm very sorry to let you know that I'm unable to perform this weekend's shows. I have bronchitis and laryngitis, and on doctor's order to do vocal rest through the weekend in order to heal. 3 days, 4 days of vocal rest can help, but I mean that generally, if you're really in that bad a shape, that you need a little longer than that.
And especially when you make your living singing.
Yeah, or talking on the radio.
That's true. Yeah,
that can happen. So laryngitis is a difficult thing to overcome when you are a performer of any kind. So best of luck to Chris Stapleton. Get well soon, and you don't have to thank me. Just nod your head. Don't speak. It's fine. It is 58 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
5 o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top story. 77 degrees right now in Nashville. Complete weather forecast, the latest traffic report on the way in 5 minutes. Chuck Sievertson bringing the latest on the Hamas attacks against Israel.
More destruction and death in the Israel-Hamas war. The latest update, at least 1,200 dead in Israel, says the nation's health ministry. More than 1,500 dead in Gaza. 27 Americans confirmed dead. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken was in Israel.
From here, I'll go on to Jordan, where I'll meet with His Majesty King Abdullah and with Palestinian Authority President Abbas. And then over the coming days, we'll visit with leaders in Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Egypt, and Qatar.
An Israeli unity government has been sworn in. The New York Times says House Democrats were told by a deputy Treasury Secretary during a closed-door meeting yesterday an agreement had been reached with Qatar to block Iran's access to $6 billion recently transferred as part of last month's prison swap. And National Security Council spokesman John Kirby.
It's still sitting in the Qatari bank, all of it, every dime of it.
Only Qatar with access to that.
And the number of Americans killed in the attacks has now increased to 27, 14 Americans still unaccounted for. Right now in the nation's capital, the House Republican leadership crisis continues. Without an end in sight, the GOP conference's pick to become the next House Speaker is said to be now running out of time to seal the deal among his colleagues. Stephen Portnoy.
Steve Scalise remains short of the votes needed to win the gavel. House Republicans emerged from a closed-door meeting describing it merely as an airing of grievances amid the gridlock.
It's a waste of time.
In the end, I don't know what we accomplished.
Despite the conference's vote to nominate Scalise, a significant number of members say they'll still vote for Jim Jordan. The next steps aren't clear. Michael McCall, who chairs the House Foreign Affairs Committee, says the world is watching.
Chairman Xi talks about how democracy doesn't work, and we're proving him right.
And the House GOP has signaled they don't want to take a vote on the floor unless the nominee has secured the 217 votes that are needed to clinch the gavel, which making the time for a speaker election uncertain, but it will not happen today. Crime right now in Tennessee, police searching for a person of interest that's connected to a deadly shooting in East Nashville. This happened back in September. They have the man pictured in security footage where 40-year-old Corey Bryant was shot and killed. That man reportedly spotted in the Sylvan Street area at the time of that shooting. That is the latest news. Traffic and weather on the way. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Good afternoon. It's the Drive at 5. That's right, the third hour of this little program that we call The Drive. We're here every day from 3 till 7. So we are into hour number 3, and we're glad that you're with us on this the 12th day of October of 2023. It is a Thursday, and it's a beautiful day outside. Here in Bucolic Watertown, a balmy 76 degrees. The Bulldog did come in with me to work today, but she's not very happy with me.
Oh, yeah?
Because, well, we believe she's got, she's incubating some puppies.
She's with child.
We think she's with child or with children. And we can't give her regular, medicine for allergies.
Oh.
And so she's, so you can't do that when they're pregnant. And we've been warned not to do that. So she keeps itching herself so much and rubbing her nose that it's gotten out of control, and we've had to put her in the cone of shame.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I know. And it's just horrible. You don't want to do it. And she's just completely disgusted with us for having done that to her. But, poor Grogu.
Just turns her back, does she?
When she's mad at me, she just turns her back on me.
Doesn't
won't
even
look at
you.
me
Yeah.
at all. No, won't even look at me.
Oh, yeah.
So, I'm not in favor with the Bulldog at the moment. But she's here with me today because it's, she can't really run around the yard. It's funny. The only time she comes over to the desk is when I rattle the pretzel bag.
Snacks.
And then she's right there. But the funny thing is I hand her a pretzel, and if she drops it, she can't eat it because you got the cone around her neck.
Oh, that's sad.
It's really sad, bless her heart.
Oh.
I have to break them into little pieces and feed her. She loves pretzels. We want to get serious here, though, for a moment, though, and get you up to date on what's happening inside Israel with regard to Iran and Hamas and the whole region. Let me start out by saying that we have new numbers that came from the White House briefing room today. Here is Admiral John Kirby, who speaks on behalf of the National Security Council, bringing us the latest data.
We can now update the number of Americans that we know have been killed to 27, and the number of unaccounted for stands today at 14. We're obviously doing everything we can to support and inform the families. Now, sadly, 5 more families have now gotten the worst possible news that any family can conceive of getting. And we're going to stay in touch with them as appropriate. Same goes for those family members of those who are unaccounted for. And by unaccounted for, we mean that. We don't know where they are. They don't know where they are. So we're going to obviously stay in touch with them as well. And certainly we're continuing to work with Israeli officials to make sure that we're getting as much context and information as possible that we will share with them. Also, as you, I think, realize, we are all acutely aware of limited availability right now on commercial flights out of Israel and the demand signal by U.S. citizens who may want to depart. The President has asked his team to ensure that we are assisting U.S. citizens who do want to leave Israel and providing them with a safe means of doing that. So beginning tomorrow, the United States government will arrange charter flights to provide transportation from Israel to sites in Europe. They're still working through some of the details of that to assist U.S. citizens and their immediate family members who have, for whatever reason, not been able to provide commercial transit out of the country.
I don't understand that bit at all. I mean, why can't we send? U.S. military has a lot of aircrafts that are designed to carry people. So does the CIA, by the way. So you got a lot of different things you could do. And why do we have to sit around and wait on a charter flight? Just get some planes over there, and if Americans want to go home, get them home. The President of the United States, if I were President of the United States, I'd send one of my 2 Air Force Ones over there. You got 2 of them. They're exactly the same. Keep one here, send one over there. You've got, tell the Vice President she'll have to take a commercial flight if she needs to go somewhere. Send her 757 over there. I mean, you could do that with pick up a phone call, say send them, and it would be done. And, just check their passports, put them on the plane, bring them back. That's just ridiculous that we can't do this any quicker than we do. We're going to get some charter aircraft. Charter aircraft don't want to go in there. I mean, would you want to fly your multi-million-dollar aircraft in there? No, the insurance companies would kill you. But, it's a little different when you're flying military aircraft. You can get a military escort. You can do everything you can to protect it. I mean, you go over there and get those people. That's insane. The other thing that I picked up, though, and that sort of made my ears perk up a little bit was when Kirby said that when it comes to the hostages, we don't know where they are, and they don't know where they are, which suggests to me they may have been in contact with a hostage. And the first question, where are you? And they don't know. Why? Because they were blindfolded when they were captured. They don't know where they are. And they get moved around, and they're blindfolded again. Moved around, broken up into small groups. There's no telling where they are. And that makes it very, very difficult. Next, Kirby had this thing to say about some of the gruesome images that we have seen. And he says, brace yourself. There's probably going to be more coming.
We all need to be prepared for the fact that there's going to be additional gruesome images coming out. And there's going to be some pretty tough reports for all of us to swallow. This is not over.
Which suggests to me that they have intelligence beyond what is being reported that talks about the brutality, the savagery of the attacks of Hamas against innocent Israelis who did nothing wrong. And we may need to get ready for that. By the way, I just want to stop for a moment and say I heard a great conversation this morning on Chris Hand's show where someone was saying, should we believe what we hear? And Chris has been of the ilk, and I think it's a good thing to do, to say we should be a little skeptical. And it is true. It's a long-held maxim that I think is very true. Is that in times of war, the first casualty is often the truth, and that's true. It really is. Sometimes, how many times were we lied to during the Vietnam War and other conflicts? The Israelis have a very capable psyops operation, and the idea is, of course, to psychologically go after the enemy. But there's another component to that, and that is use your psyops forces to shape public opinion. And they're good at it. And, I'm not going to say that's what they're doing here. I'm just simply saying it's not a bad idea to be skeptical. However, that said, I do believe that the reports, according to everything I can find, of infants being beheaded, which sounds like, well, is that real, or is that just psyops? I believe it's real. Apparently, the president of the United States has been shown images, and his conversations with Netanyahu. Apparently, the images have been shown in the Situation Room, and they are said to be quite graphic. So when I hear Admiral Kirby say, get ready because we're going to see some things in the days ahead, they're going to be tough to take, I take him at his word. And I think there is ample evidence that that the savagery that has been described is accurate. I do. So, that's my belief. Again, it's not to say we shouldn't be skeptical and double check it and run it down. But at this point, I think that the information satisfies my level of clarity and transparency. Then it comes to the money in Iran, the $6 billion. Kirby was asked a series of questions by Jackie Heinrich, who is the White House correspondent for Fox News, about this, and he sort of danced around without giving an answer. Listen to this back and forth.
Why is it that you won't come out and say that the U.S. does not intend to let this money go to Iran?
Jackie, we've always had, since the beginning, we've always had the ability to provide oversight over the disbursement of these funds. We've always had the option, if we wanted it, to look at transactions and to make a call about whether we found it valid or not. That has not changed. And even now, as you and I are speaking, none of that money has been accessed by anybody. It's still all there.
Is it because we think that freezing it essentially again would complicate any negotiations with Iran or our ability to get Americans home in the future?
I'm not going to go into any more detail.
Well, that's exactly what it is. I mean, she hit upon it, and he did not want to talk about that, and he shut down that line of questioning very quickly. I think that there are conversations that are going on with Iran, and I think that they don't want to complicate any potential help. I don't think you're going to get any, but I mean, if there's a potential for Iran to have some impact over Hamas with regard to getting the hostages back, then they don't want to sort of exacerbate that situation by refreezing and seizing. I think they should go ahead and refreeze it and seize it. I don't think you're going to get any real help from Iran, but that's what's going on. They're talking to Iran. And you notice they've been very careful to say we have no hard evidence that that Iran was involved in the planning of this operation. Now, they don't have, they're not blind to the fact that Iran has supported Hamas and Hezbollah in the north to a great degree over the years. It seems unfathomable to me that Iran could not have known about this and helped plan it. But one way or the other, the little game that's being played now is that we might need Iran to help us secure the hostages. And if we have to get ready, they'll get ready to release another $6 billion if they pay, because we pay for hostages and they know that now. To me, the $6 billion, for humanitarian aid is not near as important as the fact that we did it in exchange for getting 5 American hostages released from Iran. And the message I think that the region took from that was that, well, if we take hostages, we can ask for money and get it. I really think that's what it's about. So I do believe that we're talking to Iran. I don't know how productive that has been, but one way or the other, I think that is happening, and I don't have much hope that that's going to be helpful. So there are all the things that I wanted to talk about with regard to that. The pictures about beheaded babies, he talked about the gruesome images. We may see those in the days ahead, but Israel confirms it, and they showed the pictures to Biden, and he has said that he has seen these unspeakable images. The IDF has taken out Syrian airports, put a few bombs right in the middle of their runways, and that's because they don't want Syria to get any ideas about entering from that vantage point. And they have a lot of crews, a lot of forces that are aligned around the northern border as well. About 10,000 Israeli Defense forces are up in the north, looking for any potential signs of Hezbollah entering the fray, I guess I should say. One of the things that our aircraft carriers are there to prevent is a widening of the war to keep Lebanon and Syria and other, maybe Iran as well, from taking actions to take advantage of the chaos there. They do not need to fight a war on 2 fronts. And so the presence of our aircraft carriers is a warning to Lebanon. Don't you dare do it. In the meantime, at least 10,000 troops have been moved into the north of Israel in case something does happen. And then in a moment, I want to talk about a great concern that I have. Number one, Hamas has called for a worldwide day of jihad tomorrow, at a time when America doesn't know how many people who are in this country might want to do us harm. More on that in just a moment, and we'll talk about something called proportionality. Right now, it's 20 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock. King & Associates Insurance in Brentwood has been around for some 25 years as an independent agency, and I'm telling you, that is a good thing for you. I mean, if you get your insurance on a website where, if you decide you have a question, you got to call a number and then wait for an hour. I mean, have you ever had to do that where you wait for an hour to get a human being to talk to you? Maybe longer than that. Well, you're never going to have that happen at King & Associates Insurance. If you call this number, 615-329-8121, You don't get a call center. You don't get a recording. You get an actual person every time. That's right, an actual person. And then the other thing that's great about an independent agency, they're not wedded to one company. They can shop around. They can find the best deal. They can find you a very good policy that you can afford that covers you probably better than the stuff that you have right now. So you need to give them an opportunity to do that. How do you do that? You get your royal review with T. King Insurance. You just go to tkinginsurance.com. That's tkinginsurance.com. And listen, remember, multi-policy discounts equal big, big savings. King Insurance and Associates, royal treatment, and absolutely great rates.
Hey everybody, Dan Mattis with Nashville's Morning News on WTN. I'm here at the Nashville Rescue Mission doing the interviews that I look forward to doing every single year. These are incredible stories of people who have had amazing recoveries. Thanks to this amazing facility, they are able to get clean and lead a more productive life. The date of our annual radiothon is going to be Monday, November 20th. Listen in and please donate. You can get more information at 99.7 WTN, including a link to the website for Nashville's Rescue Mission.
An update on the war in Israel, and Tennessee Representative Andy Ogles joins WTN and gives an update on the House Speaker race in the nation's capital. 5:30, all right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It's time for that fan favorite, the Wide World of Sports with Mac Morey.
Spanning the globe to bring you the constant variety of sport, the thrill of victory, and the agony of defeat.
Yeah, that's right, Mac Morey. He's the host of our show. And now, let's talk to Mac Morey about the wide world of sports. Mac, I'm sorry, I forgot that we were going to do this. I put a big star on my rundown. I'm going to show you right there. There it is. It's the big star on my rundown that says, "Don't forget Mac Maury's Wide World of Sports." And I'm just brain dead sometimes and I forgot. But we don't want to miss it. We'll get to the other stuff on the other side of the news. So what are we going to talk about today in the wide world of sports with Mac Maury?
Well, it is the Nashville Predators home opener today. NHL just started, so I thought, Bridgestone's getting ready to, they're cooling up. They're getting the ice ready to go, and I think puck drops here pretty soon against the Seattle Kraken. So I thought we'd just take a look at the Preds team this year and the season overall and just kind of take a look at what to expect with Nashville Predators hockey this year. Because last year, I don't know if you guys remember, but they kind of just topsy-turvied the whole roster in the middle of the season, just kind of said, okay, we're kind of do a fire sale.
Kind of blew things up, yeah.
Yeah, blew things up, and it was a really young team. But they overperformed the second half of the season because, the expectations were pretty low. It was kind of like, okay, it's going to be a bottom 5 hockey team, and they weren't. They were maybe bottom 10, but they were the top of that bottom 10. They couldn't quite squeeze in the playoffs, but the fact that they were in that discussion last year with a bunch of new guys, young players, it was fun. So now we've got a whole offseason of continuity here and a new general manager in Barry Trotz, and so we'll kind of see.
Who is well known to Predators fans.
Right. Absolutely right.
Longtime coach of the Preds.
Of course, yep, longtime coach of the Preds. And so he obviously knows where this franchise wants to go. And he actually, reading here on the Tennessean, he talked to the leadership group up in the front office and was kind of like, okay, we just did that. We just did the fire sale last year. What do we want to do this season? What's the plan? And they said, well, we liked what we saw to the young guys. We wanted to stick this, kind of young up-and-coming group back in on the ice. And maybe surround them with another veteran or two. And that's exactly what they're going to do. They signed a guy named Ryan O'Reilly. And, I'm not a hockey guy, so I'm doing a little bit of research here. And from what I see, this is a good player, Ryan O'Reilly. He's a veteran. He's an all-star center, 3-time all-star. He won an MVP back in 2019 for the St. Louis Blues, a playoffs MVP, that is. He's got a Stanley Cup trophy with the St. Louis Blues, so he's got experience. He's been deep into the playoffs. So that guy, along with, Roman Josi and Philip Forsberg, those are going to kind of be the big 3 veterans. And this guy named Colton Sissons as well, who's a defensive type player, are going to be kind of the big 3, big 4 of veterans surrounded by a bunch of young athletic hockey players.
Well, that's exciting. And I want them to do well, but I must say that my reasons are rather personal. I want them to do well because if we get into the playoffs, we have to dust off this fan favorite. Mac, I don't think you've heard this because last year they didn't do well enough for us to actually pull it off. So, they blow the dust off this thing. It's a fan favorite. Throw that catfish down.
Throw that catfish down, son, before they drop the puck. Throw that catfish down, son, it'll bring you lots of luck. Catfish down, son, it's time to start the fun. Throw that catfish down, son, we can win another one.
And then, by the way, that's Brent Mason.
That was great.
Playing the guitar.
That's something.
Good stuff. So anyway, we'll put that away until a little later in the season. But, we want a good season.
Yes, let's
if for
make it
no other
happen.
reason that we get to break out the fan favorite for many, many years. When they do well, throw that catfish down there. By the way, the singer on that is a guy by name Michael Lusk, well known in town. I assembled an all-cast star.
You did?
Yeah, I wrote those words, and then I had some people who know how to do it much better than I, who helped me with the music and all that kind of stuff. And then we went into a studio with a A-list team and recorded "Throw That Catfish Down."
I'm still just astounded that didn't blow up when we first put it out there.
I can't understand why the Preds didn't play it at a slow moment of the game where you want to charge people up.
Come on, that should be viral.
They needed to then crank up, throw that catfish down. That would have been fantastic.
It may have something to do with the fact that they probably really don't want people to throw catfish on the ice. But
that may be
small price to pay.
That's right. It's 30 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk.
.5:30, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories right now. 76 degrees in Nashville. Got a full weather forecast, the latest traffic report on the way in 5 minutes. Israeli Defense Forces ramping up their attack both in the south against Hamas and to the north with Hezbollah fighters. Anastela Katera in Tel Aviv.
Big fears that there could be a major escalation here and a possible second front. So we're, of course, talking about what's happening on Israel's northern border, the idea of confirming that they have been engaging with Hezbollah. We know there's been fighting on the Syrian border as well. Hezbollah does have a presence in Syria with rockets fired at Israel from Syria. And today we did learn, according to Syrian officials, that airports in Syria, Damascus and Aleppo, were struck. They are pointing the finger at the IDF.
And the number of Americans killed in those attacks now increased to 27, 14 Americans still unaccounted for. Over to the nation's capital, Tennessee Representative Andy Ogles joined WTN's The Matt Murphy Show today to give an update on the speaker's race as they conducted another closed-door meeting.
So we had this 2.5-hour-long meeting. It was kind of a place for people to state their position and offer their grievances. I would argue that it wasn't productive because we need to be voting. We need to be voting on a speaker, and here we are. It's 3:30 Eastern time on a Thursday, and we haven't cast a single vote that's binding for speaker. That's a problem.
And Ogle says that Jim Jordan is the candidate who has his vote in the latest vote, 113 for Scalise, 99 for Jordan. He went on to say that they tried to cram the House yesterday and rush them into a decision that they weren't ready to make. Ogle says that this race could be expanded beyond these two and brought up names such as Mark Green, Jody Arrington, or Mike Johnson. And the representative said that he'll be drafting up a letter today trying to get fellow representatives to stay in D.C. over the weekend and get this sorted out. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather on the way. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
I want to talk to you about assisted family care for a moment, if I could. It's one of the hardest things we see as we grow older and become older adults. Our parents are older than us, right? And you may have noticed during a holiday or the last time you got together for a celebration that your folks are getting to a point where they may be struggling with the day-to-day things that were once so easy, and they're approaching an age where they will need more and more help every day. What can you do about that? I mean, you're busy, you've got your family, you've got your heavy job responsibilities. There may even be some distance between you and your friends, but what are you going to do? Well, if they're in this area, why don't you reach out to Assisted Family Care? They will connect you with a responsible, compassionate, compatible helper to assist you with your loved one's daily needs. And by the way, if your loved one is a veteran or the spouse or widow of a veteran, they could well qualify for a little-known benefit to help cover these kinds of expenses. Assisted Family Care has years of experience in cutting through the red tape to help those in Middle Tennessee who qualify actually get access to the benefits. You see, many veterans are eligible to receive up to 20 hours of daily living assistance each week at no cost to them. And not everyone is eligible, but if you're a veteran with a wartime service, you may qualify for the benefit for yourself or for your spouse. I want to warn you, the application process is not easy. Just call Assisted Family Care. They have years of experience in cutting through the red tape. Assisted Family Care can help. Assisted Family Care will be there for you. Visit assistedfamilycare.com or call this number, 615-833-9725. 38 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Brian Wilson in the chair. We got Mac Morey in the newsroom and Chris Weber in the control room with all the blinky buttons, making sure that things go smoothly as he always does. Okay, I want to pick up the thought that I was going to get to when I didn't look at my rundown. And, you spend a lot of time preparing a rundown so that we have a plan for the show. But it doesn't work unless you look at the rundown.
That helps, yes.
Yeah, I for a moment, my gaze went a different direction, and I wasn't looking at the rundown, but I'm going to pick it back up now. We are told that the White House has been getting behind closed doors and talking to Netanyahu, and has suggested that you need to be very careful about how you proceed as you go into the Gaza Strip, and they got all these land forces that are prepared to go. They continue to soften for 6 days now. Their targets inside of Gaza City from the air, which is not uncommon. And when they go in, they're gonna rout out whatever is left of Hamas, and it's going to be a really, really difficult thing, and that's going to happen. But the president has been talking now, and the White House has been sending messages about proportionality. Biden warned Netanyahu not to hit Hamas too hard. And officials with the Biden administration have actually been quoted as saying, here's the exact quote. This is from Adrienne Watson, who speaks on behalf of the National Security Council, in addition to Admiral Kirby. We remain focused on holding the terrorists accountable for their attacks, and we support Israel taking necessary and proportionate action to defend its country and protect its people. In doing so, U.S. citizens who live and work and travel in Israel. Proportionate. That's the word that jumps out at me, because what they're saying is, well, it's okay to go back in and defend yourself and extract a pound of flesh for the things that have happened, but it needs to be proportionate. Well, how do you find the level of proportionality when you consider some of the things that Hamas has done? I mean, they have wiped out entire communities. They have kidnapped and raped women. They have abducted children and the elderly in wheelchairs, and they have killed babies in the most gruesome and graphic way. I mean, how do you find a level of proportionality to that? I mean, if they went and did the things that I guess that Hamas did, they would be called, butchers on the world stage. And actually, we know they won't do that. They will do everything they can to protect civilian damage, but there's going to be some civilian collateral damage. There's just no way. And by the way, when they go in, the fighting with ground troops is going to be hard. I mean, it's going to be urban warfare, difficult warfare, street by street, and they will always have the high ground. Maybe that's why they're taking down so many of the buildings. They don't want them to have the high ground. But I'm telling you, when they go in there, to me, even if they come halfway to being as savage as the Hamas was, it would still not be close to being proportionate. So, I just think that what is happening here is that the administration is trying to get them to pull their horns in just a little bit and to not react in the way that I think they are absolutely justified to react. Hamas has called for a global day of jihad tomorrow. Palestinian Hamas terror groups have called on Muslims worldwide to stage a day of jihad or holy war on Friday. And did I mention that tomorrow is Friday, October 13th? A date that resonates with horror movies and the upcoming Halloween holiday. The Middle East Research Institute has Hamas saying the following: we declare Friday, the Friday of the Al-Aqsa flood, as a day of general mobilization in our Arab and Islamic world and among the free people of our world. It is a day to rally, support, operate, and participate actively. It is a day to expose the crimes of the occupation, isolate it, and foil it for all its aggressive schemes. It is a day to demonstrate our love for Palestine, Jerusalem, and Al-Aqsa. It's also a day for sacrifice, heroism, and dedication, and to earn the honor of defending the first Qibla of Muslims, the third holiest mosque, and the ascension of the trusted messenger. So this is a very religious message, but when you throw in words like it's a day for sacrifice, does that not raise any alarm bells with you like it does with me? Yeah, it does. And trust me, it has made me more concerned because we have this to think about. The southern border has been wide open since Joe Biden took office. And the DHS has admitted recently that Biden's border crisis is making it easier for terrorists to enter America. It's almost as if they don't want to be accused of not sending up the flare. So they have acknowledged a few things. Here is what they said. The agency acknowledges that individuals with potential terrorism connections are actively attempting to enter the U.S. thanks to the ongoing crisis. Months before the 2023 fiscal year ended, Customs and Border Protection had already encountered approximately 160 individuals on the terrorist screening list. The watch list, more than 100 or so encountered in the entirety of the 2022 fiscal year. And according to the report, inclusion in this ranges from known associates of watch-listed individuals such as family members to individuals directly engaged in terrorist activity. I want to say that again. They have actually come in contact with people directly engaged in terrorist activity. Nearly 7 million illegal immigrants have been encountered at the U.S. border, and that does not even include the potentially millions of gotaways who evaded capture by the Customs and Border Patrol agents. We don't know who came into this country. We don't have any idea who has come here, but we know if they caught 160 individuals, how many of those people came across in a different way? Okay, you send us back across, we'll just come back in another way. How many of them got in this country and were part of the 1.7 million people who entered this country illegally without ever having any contact with any level of law enforcement? They simply crossed the border where the Border Patrol wasn't. And doing so, they made it into this country, and we don't have a clue as to what we're up to. So it makes me nervous. It makes me nervous that we have had this going on for so long. I've been raising the flare as loudly as I possibly can from this position, but I mean, it is really shocking and stunning to me that we don't have a clue where people who might be on the terrorist watch list are. We don't know where they went to. I know there's some that they've been trying to claw back. They found out after they released them that they shouldn't have released them. And they're still trying to find those people. If a tragedy that is the size of what we experienced in this country on 9/11 could be carried out by 12 individuals with box cutters, what could potentially hundreds, maybe thousands of people who are into this country who want to commit terrorism or don't have our best interests at play, and then they get a notice from Hamas that it's time to make a sacrifice. I think this country, law enforcement in this country, should be on high alert tomorrow. I think they should be. And I pray. I mean, I don't want to be right about this. The greatest thing that could happen is that we get here next week and we got through the weekend and nothing happened, or that law enforcement was able to interrupt something that was going to happen one way or the other, that everybody is safe. That's what I hope happens. I want that to happen. But I have real concerns. And I'm not trying to be an alarmist. I'm trying to be a realist. We don't know where these people are. We don't know what they're up to. And at a time and a place where the world is so tense, and you have Hamas calling for a global day of jihad and sacrifice, that's concerning. That's concerning. So, I tell you what, I'm not planning on moving too much from the house tomorrow. I'll just be honest with you. And call me an alarmist, call me someone who worries too much. But listen, I'm telling you, I think we'll be very lucky if we escape all of this, whether it's tomorrow or not, without some kind of terrorist action against the homeland. Here's the problem. Folks who know really what's going on are sending up sort of subtle flare signs as well. Here's a former director of Homeland Security in the Obama administration, Jay Johnson.
There are a lot of people entering our southern border right now, thousands and thousands. It's a hemispheric move north, bigger than anything we've ever seen. And the challenge for our Border Patrol, for our Customs, for DHS, for the FBI is to try to keep up. Unfortunately, as you know, the system is broken, it's horribly backlogged, and there are a whole lot of people entering this country who we cannot identify.
That is an Obama era official sending up the flare that, we don't know a lot about the people who have come into this country. And I have a great fear for what the future may hold. I hope I'm wrong. I want to be wrong. But I don't think that my concerns are unjust or that there is a good reason to have these valid concerns. I think they're very valid. It is now 49, let's call it 50 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk. Let's talk about Everseal. What is Everseal? Well, it's a sealant for your exterior wood and concrete. But it's something special and something different than the other sealants that you may have encountered in the past. It's actually technology that's been around for ages and was used in industrial applications. But the folks at Everseal figured out how to make it a permanent solution for sealing your exterior wood and concrete at a price that home and business owners can actually afford. First thing they do is they come in and they do a deep cleaning. They go all the way through your wood or concrete to bring it back to looking as new as it possibly can look. And then they apply the sealant in a way where it absorbs all the way through to become a permanent part of your wood and concrete. And the idea is to prevent any further deterioration, and I'm not making this up, for the next 30 to 50 years. Think about all the money you could save if you didn't have to think about sealing your deck or sealing up your exterior concrete for 30 to 50 years. Think about the time. Think about the money. So if this sounds like something you're interested in, why don't you reach out to Steve Nelson and the team over at Everseal? They can help you through this whole process and get you started. 844-EVER-USA. That's 844-EVER-USA. Or go to their website, ever-seal.com.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. I've been teaching investing on Nashville airwaves for over 20 years with the Investor Coaching Show. And in that time, I taught a lot about how markets work and how we invest money and academic principles of investing money. But I've also talked an awful lot about how to avoid the mistakes that people often make with their money. Think about it. A lot of people sold out of the market at the worst time when COVID struck, or when TARPAP and the Troubled Asset Relief Program, or gold, they invested in that at the worst time. Bailing out of the market because they were worried about Y2K or 9/11 or jumping into energy stocks or jumping into cryptocurrency. One of the things that I like to do is educate investors, because I believe that the more educated you are, the more confident you are, and the more confident you are, the more successful you can be as an investor. Now, I not only do that on our radio show, but we do that in our offices around the Nashville region, 10 offices. To learn more about our approach to investing and financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call. Or you can call 615-851-1950.
Israeli officials looking for any possible Hamas sleeper cells. Andy Ogles provides an update on the speaker race and street racing in Nashville. Those stories and more, 6 o'clock. Super Talk, 99.7 WTN.
All right, we'll bring you up to date on all the major stories of the day in the next hour, the last hour of the drive on this 12th day of October. So stay tuned. It's all straight ahead on the drive. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Let's talk about Busy Bee HVAC, man. It's a good company, and boy, if you have problems this time of year, it could be with either your heating or your air conditioning. You know, it gets a little cool at night, a little warm during the day. You need both sides of your HVAC, and if any side of it is not working, just call the folks I would call, 775-7833, and the folks from Busy Bee will buzz over to your hive and get you going. Right? They're great at that. I mean, they understand you need to get that thing working and working fast. By the way, I think you should consider becoming a member of the Beehive Club. For added rewards and savings, in as little as $99, you get 3 thorough maintenance services on your system, one at the beginning of heating and cooling season, one aimed at plumbing, no overtime charges 24/7, and 10% off all repairs. Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling is your official Rude Pro partner. For satisfaction guaranteed, call Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling, 775-7833, online at busybeehvac.com.
Six o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Sunny, 75 degrees. Latest forecast and traffic report on the way. Chuck Sievertson filling you in on the war in Israel.
Chanting Free Palestine on the campus of New York's Columbia University, a pro-Palestinian rally across from a pro-Israel demonstration. In the Israel-Hamas war, at least 1,200 dead in Israel, says the nation's health ministry. More than 1,500 dead in Gaza. 27 Americans confirmed dead. In Tel Aviv, ABC's Inez de la Cuetara.
Big fears that there could be a major escalation here and a possible second front. So we're, of course, talking about what's happening on Israel's northern border, the idea of confirming that they have been engaging with Hezbollah. We know there's been fighting on the Syrian border as well. Hezbollah does have a presence in Syria with rockets fired at Israel from Syria. And today we did learn, according to Syrian officials, that airports in Syria, Damascus and Aleppo, were struck. They are pointing the finger at the IDF.
U.S. police departments on alert after Hamas called for a day of rage tomorrow, targeting Israelis and Jews.
And Israeli Defense Forces right now on the lookout for any Hamas sleeper cells. Right now, over to the nation's capital, Tennessee Representative Andy Ogles joined WTN's The Matt Murphy Show to give an update on the speaker's race as they concluded another closed-door meeting today. The race right now seems to be between Jim Jordan and Steve Scalise, but that's quickly changing.
So you have Scalise and Jordan. I would say that Jordan is closer to getting the votes than Steve Scalise is. I like Steve. He's a good friend. He's been a mentor. But that being said, the gap is just too large. You can't overcome it. I'm supporting Jim Jordan.
And you heard Andy Ogles say that gap was too large, and that seems to be reciprocated around other House members. If he can't close that gap tonight, they may move on to other names. And Andy Ogles brought up some of those possible candidates, Mark Green, Jody Arrington, or Mike Johnson. And Ogles called that meeting unproductive today. He said there were no votes cast. He blames fellow leadership as to why this isn't done yet. He said he'll be drafting up a letter today for fellow representatives to stay in D.C. over the weekend to get it done. Crime in Tennessee. Channel 4 has obtained footage showing multiple people street racing, doing donuts, burnouts. Officers now investigating this. They're calling it a crime enterprise. Street racing has caused 6 total deaths in Nashville this year. And these large street race outings are called takeovers. A bunch of people gather around the drivers. They watch them ride. The riders and drivers are called sliders. Officials say often they're traveling in from out of town. Police are warning that even if you're just showing up to watch one of these races, if you're within 300 feet of the action, you can be charged with trespassing and rioting. Also, if a lender finds out your car was involved in one of these races, they'll repo it, no questions asked. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Good evening, everyone. It is 6:06 on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, and we're so glad that you're with us here for the last hour of our 4-hour extravaganza on this 12th day of October. We will get you home safely and hopefully give you some things to think about as you return home after a long day at work. We're glad that you are listening, and let's just get you home safely. That's our big goal here today. We want to talk a little bit more about what's happening, and I got some great information. There's some great intelligence about what's going on behind the scenes and the battle to find out who's going to be our next Speaker of the House. I think there are two stories right now, and they both are very important. One is, of course, international with what's happening to our friends in Israel and the war that's about to take place there, the ground war that's about to take place as the Israelis set their ground troops just outside the border of Gaza while they continue to pound Gaza by night from the air to soften the targets inside there. So that's still ongoing, and we've spent a lot of time talking about that. I think there's also a great story about what's going on with the trying to find a Speaker of the House. Right now, we don't have a functional Congress. I mean, sure, the Senate's in place, but the Senate can't do anything. Can't send any legislation to the president, can't do anything without the House. You got to, it's supposed to be, last time I checked, a bicameral situation, bi meaning two, last time I checked. We got a Senate, we don't have a House. And the House cannot function under the rules of the House until you have a dedicated Speaker, and Republicans seem to be increasingly unable to decide who the Speaker should be. Now, is it a fight worth having? Yes. Do I feel a little heartburn with the fact that we are looking as Republicans a little chaotic? Yes. Do I have a little heartburn about the fact that these are difficult times on the world stage and that we might need a functioning House of Representatives should something happen that we don't anticipate? Yes, very much so. I do believe that if something were to happen where we had a national emergency, the House of Representatives could be formed in about an hour. I think that would be the case. And so, I think they would be able to form quickly if there was a need for the House to be there. But I think in light of something urgent, they are, taking their time to decide who is going to be the next Speaker of the House. I look to Chad Pergram a lot for this. I looked at thehill.com. They cover this stuff all along. And let me just run through some of the things that have been said. Now, the bottom line here is Steve Scalise was appointed out of committee. He got, 113 votes, which is one more than he needed to get the majority of the conference of all Republicans in the House of Representatives. And as I will explain in a moment, some Republicans are not pleased with how he got those votes. But I'll tell you about that in a minute. But so under the regular rules of the conference, then they were supposed to go to the floor and everybody was supposed to support the nominee that got behind closed doors the most vote, which was Scalise. Didn't turn out that way. A great number of people said, I'm not going to vote for Scalise. I want to vote for Jordan. And they refused. And so Scalise on the floor needs 217 votes, and he doesn't have them. And today, it's probably gone in the wrong direction for Scalise, and it doesn't look as if Scalise is going to get the votes he needs. So they won't take it to the floor until they have the votes they need, and he doesn't have the votes he needs. Here are some of the things being said. They had a conference today. No votes were taken in conference. I don't know why they met behind closed doors, but they didn't vote on anything. And there was some discussion, but a lot of people said it was a fruitless meeting. Nothing really happened. Brian Mast, Republican from Florida, who voted to nominate Jordan for Speaker, said he was planning on supporting the conference nominee, but is not ready to back Scalise. I voted for Jim Jordan. I was planning on supporting whoever won the majority, but as of right now, there are some things I need to work through with Steve. As for specifics on the matter he had to discuss with Scalise, he declined to elaborate. It wouldn't be helpful for me to discuss them with all of you. Here is Representative Andrew Clyde, Republican of Georgia, left the meeting with Scalise, indicating he's still not with the majority leader, but saying that the meeting today was productive in his mind. He tried to beat back some of the pessimism. We'll get there. The world's not ending. The lights are still on. Carlos Jimenez, a Republican of Florida, says he's holding steadfast to voting for Kevin McCarthy as Speaker, telling reporters Thursday afternoon he doesn't think the majority of the conference who supported him last week should acquiesce to those favoring to boot him. In other words, 96% of the conference supported McCarthy, only 4% did not. Asked what Scalise or Jordan could do to win his support, Jimenez told reporters, I'm voting for McCarthy. I just think it was an injustice. I don't think the 96% need to bow to the 4%. He also said he didn't say if he planned to change his vote if it takes more than one round on the floor. He said if it goes that far, I don't know what we'll see. Marjorie Taylor Greene has raised concerns about House Majority Leader Steve Scalise's health on the House GOP conference meeting on Thursday. He said when you're in a tight game, there's a lot of pressure. You don't put in an injured player or a sick player on the field. That's not the right thing to do for that player, and it's not the right thing to do for the team. Scalise said that his treatment is going well and that his doctors had cleared him to pursue the speakership. So what he's saying here is, yes, I have blood cancer, but my doctors think I'm on the right path, and I got permission for them to pursue this job. Okay. That doesn't really reassure a lot of people, but you know what? I think it is in the back of minds of a lot of folks as they think about, well, do I want to hire a guy who may not be here long term? Fairly obvious to everyone that Scalise doesn't have the votes, says Representative Keith Self, a Republican from Texas. He thinks it's fairly obvious to everyone that Scalise does not have the votes. Well, if he had the votes, he already voted. And it was asked if there's nothing that Scalise could do to win his support. I'm not going to say that, but I'm voting for Jim Jordan on the first round. I think that we've got to ask for new leadership in the conference so that we can change the trajectory of Washington. Mike Turner, who was undecided on Scalise on Wednesday, now says he's going to back him. And then there was this interesting, well, let me get this one. Dan Crenshaw said he doubted the likelihood of the House having a new speaker installed this week. I don't think so this week, he told reporters. He initially supported Jordan, was disappointed in the counter-arguments against Scalise. I think it's very emotional. I think there were complaints about the process yesterday. More on that in a moment. I think, like we're arguing now, get over it. Your constituents don't care about whether we left the room or not. They care about border issues, and that matter to them. Here we have Representative Victoria Spartz, Republican of Indiana. She says she thinks the GOP conference is nearing a point where they'll need to move on from House Majority Leader Steve Scalise and nominate somebody else for Speaker. People have objections. Somebody doesn't have to vote. We'll have to move on to the next person. That came after the 3-hour conference. I know that Steve is trying. I'm not sure he's the person. We'll see. And then let me just push on down here for just a moment. There's a lot of good intelligence here. But the one that caught my eye was a posting that said that from Mark Green, who said, you know what, we may need at some point to move on, and somebody's going to have to step up. Mark Green of Tennessee, someone who has been talked about as a potential Speaker of the House, is one of those people who might stand up and would get a lot of support if that were the case. So you got about 15 for sure, and probably a lot more if I start doing an accurate count here, of people who say they can't vote for Scalise. Scalise is not going to get the 217 he needs, and he's not going to go to the floor unless he thinks he can get the votes. Now, at some point, how long does he hold out to see if he can get to 217? If you can't get to 217 and you're just not there, it's in the best interest to say, okay, I can't get there. Let's return and have another conference vote and see who might emerge. I think Andy Ogles is right. I think Andy Ogles has it correct. This weekend, they need to come in on Saturday morning and they need to just sit down in conference and just hash it out and not come out of there until they can send up white smoke that suggests that they have picked a speaker. Sort of like, finding who's the Pope. So I think that's what needs to happen. I want to just hit this story if I can find it here. Yes. Again, one of the things that I mentioned is that there was some hard feelings about how Scalise got to 113 votes. He needed 113 votes to win the majority in conference. Chad Pergram from Fox News, who's brilliant at covering Congress, he says, look at where Scalise's support came from behind closed doors. He scored the votes of the three non-voting delegates to Congress who were part of the Republican conference, but cannot vote for Speaker on the floor. You see, if you're a delegate to Congress, you are recognized by your party and you have a say in party decisions, but you can't actually go on the floor and vote. So Scalise got to 113 because he had the support of the delegates who can't vote on the floor. So they're not really 113 votes. There's about 111. So that when you look at that, you realize that he and Jim Jordan were not very far apart. Delegates Amada Radawagan of American Samoa, James Moylan of Guam, and Resident Commissioner Jennifer Gonzalez Colon of Puerto Rico all voted in favor of Scalise. The fact that Scalise won because of the support of the three delegates infuriated some House Republicans, says Chad Pergram. Those members are eligible to vote in the conference, but they lack a floor vote because they are not full members. So that's pretty interesting. He didn't really win among people who could actually vote for him. He won, almost as many votes. It's pretty close to the number of votes that he won with Jim Jordan, who had, 99? And he had 113, but you got, 1, 2, 3 delegates. So that really wasn't 113. It was 110, 99 to 110. Well, that's pretty close. And so I don't know how that's going to get resolved. There's some bad taste left in the mouths of many House Republicans that he had to rely upon the delegates to get a majority because they can vote in conference, but they can't vote on the floor. So where are we? I don't think we are even anywhere close to having a Speaker of the House. It doesn't seem that that's possible. It seems that you have a process that is bogged down. You have a House conference that is divided against itself. And as it looks to me, we could be having these kinds of votes unless they go into a closed door room and lock it. Send in a pizza or two every once in a while, and see if you can come to a decision on who can actually get 217 votes in the House of Representatives. It doesn't seem that it's going to be Scalise. I would say that Jim Jordan's position is stronger than it was, but I don't think we're there yet. So something to watch, something to keep an eye on as we go forward. Again, no solution in sight, and until they get a Speaker of the House, we don't have a functioning Congress. There is, by the way, just one idea that they would give the Speaker pro tem the power to go forward and actually carry on business. The Speaker pro tem is a guy who, I don't know. I don't think he has any chance of all of becoming Speaker, but the idea of having someone who is not fully Speaker, allowing business to go forward under that would be something that I think Democrats would question very sharply, and I'm not sure even a lot of Republicans would be on board with that idea. 20 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Your chance to get that rare, hard-to-find, luxury pre-owned Rolex timepiece is happening at Genesis Diamonds Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Friday and Saturday, the October 20th and October 21st coming up. Genesis is hosting an epic pre-owned luxury Rolex event featuring a stunning new selection of these hard-to-find watches. The ones you want, the Hulks, the Submariners, the Daytonas, the Pepsis, the Batman. All hottest models that people wait for years, they will have on hand. And for this event, you can choose from 5-year financing or get a free pair of 2-carat lab-grown diamond earrings valued at $5,000. Imagine a luxury pre-owned ladies Rolex date just for just $199 a month, or a Sea Dweller or a Submariner for just $299 a month. No waiting list, no games, just the watch you want at a great Genesis value price that you deserve. Also for the event, Genesis pre-owned Rolex buyers will be offering top dollars for your Rolex. If you got one, bring it in. You can buy, sell, or trade. Come see the largest selection of luxury pre-owned Rolex watches in the state. Get the timepiece of your dreams and take advantage of special financing. Friday and Saturday, October 20th and 21st, only at Genesis Diamonds, your home for luxury pre-owned Rolexes. 2 locations, Green Hills and Cool Springs, on approved credit while supplies last. See store for details.
Hey everybody, Dan Mattis with Nashville's Morning News on WTN. I'm here at the Nashville Rescue Mission doing the interviews that I look forward to doing every single year. These are incredible stories of people who have had amazing recoveries. Thanks to this amazing facility, they are able to get clean and lead a more productive life. The date of our annual radiothon is going to be Monday, November 20th. Listen in and please donate. You can get more information at 99.7 WTN, including a link to the website for Nashville's Rescue Mission.
You know what? There was some economic news today that, when you read the headline, you say, well, that's not too bad. But it really, when you look at it in greater detail, you say, well, maybe that's something I should be concerned about. I mean, actually, I'm not telling anything you don't know, because you know what it costs when you go to the grocery store. You know what it costs when you fill up the tank of your car. You know what kind of expenses that you're facing right now. And if you're like most people in America, inflation has really hit you hard, especially, at the grocery store. I mean, it's really, really hard right now to just exist. I mean, for a lot of people who work paycheck to paycheck, you got enough money to do some of the things that you must do, but not all of the things that you want to do. I mean, something has to give if you just can't make it go or stretch that paycheck out long enough. You got to choose between putting food on the table or a shelter over your head or clothes on your back. And a lot of things that you would like to do, you have to put off. And if you can't make ends meet, what do? You go to your credit card, where interest rates are now around 20%. And that's not good, because interest rates are continuing to go up, and they probably, I think, are going to go up yet again. So how do you make it work? Well, the Consumer Prices Index came out today, and everybody said, well, it rose 0.4% in 1 month. And everybody said, ooh, that's not too bad. That's maybe a little higher than they thought it was going to be, but not too bad. Well, when you look at what's happened between August and September, it's a full 1%. And when you look at how much inflation has risen since Joe Biden became president, it's 17.7%, which would be okay, but your real wages have gone down by 3.2%. So you're not keeping up with the rate of inflation at all, not even close. You're way in the hole. And so you're not making as much money as you need to make ends meet, and the prices continue to go up. And here is something I did not know until today. I was surprised to read this. That's, of course, a national average, right? So nationally, inflation now stands at 3.7%. But not all areas of the country are experiencing the same rate of inflation. New England doing great. Inflation running about 2.5% in Maine, New Hampshire, and Massachusetts. In middle Atlantic states such as New Jersey and New York, inflation clocking in at 3.2%. But in the South is taking the worst beating from inflation. Overall inflation is running at 4.2% in the region as a whole, but, and listen to this carefully, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, and Kentucky are now facing higher inflation, perhaps nearly the highest in the nation, at 4.6% annual pace. So you are getting hit harder by inflation than other parts of the country. And why that is the case, it escapes me. I can't figure out why, but that is the truth. Tampa has 6.7% inflation. There are individual pockets where they're really seeing it. In a place like Tampa, you think it's probably rental cost that are, that's nearly double the national average. Denver, it's 5.4%, 5% in San Bernardino, but we're not far behind in the South. Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, and Kentucky, it comes in at 4.6% annual pace. So, again, we're getting hit a little harder than other folks are, and it's the reasons for that just escape me. Other news real quick, your Social Security check in 2024 will go up. There'll be a COLA adjustment of 3.2%. That's starting off. Last year, the COLA adjustments totaled 8.7%. So, you get a little bit of break there if you're on Social Security. And then there is a new development in the strike. Nearly 9,000 Ford Kentucky truck plant workers walk out in a new phase of the UAW strike. This is where they make a lot of the big trucks, the big expensive trucks and SUVs, and this hits Ford pretty hard. It's one of their most profitable plants, and now 9,000 Ford Kentucky truck plant workers are on strike as part of the widening UAW strike effort. It is now 30 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock. Let me tell you about the folks over at Johnny Fleeman's. Have you been to Fleeman's Steakhouse in a while? Legend Steakhouse? Oh, man, I'm telling you, wouldn't a good Fleeman's steak taste good tonight? Well, listen, that's great, but you often think about them for dinner, but what about not thinking about them for lunch as well? Because they can provide you with a great lunch every day. Comes with 1 meat and 2 country-cooked vegetables and casserole. So here are the meats. You get fried pork chop, for example, smoky mountain meatloaf, fried catfish, slow-cooked pot roast with gravy, 14 vegetables and casseroles to choose from, broccoli casserole, turnip green, bourbon glazed apples, fried green tomatoes, potato casseroles, black-eyed peas, man, just to name a few. The kind of cooking your mama used to do. And in fact, these recipes came from Johnny's mama. He borrowed the recipe book some 30 years ago, and he just never thought to bring it back. Legend Steakhouse, multiple locations across Middle Tennessee. The idea here is good food at a fair price, and you're going to love your next visit to the Legend Steakhouse. Go to legendsteakhouse.com for locations, or maybe to order online. You can do that as well. Been around for some 34 years here in Tennessee. You're going to love your next visit to Legend Steakhouse. Oh, by the way, on Veterans Day, veterans eat for free. It's 37 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock. Brian Wilson on the drive. Last few minutes of the program before we hand it over to Mark Levin, the great one, after the news at 7 o'clock. So want to bring you up to speed on some things. You know, I have just the greatest respect for Newsmax White House correspondent James Rosen. I worked with James in D.C. I count him among one of my best friends on the planet. We shared an office together and routinely drove each other crazy for about 6 years. And so I think the world of the guy. I think that in all of the people that I have encountered in my travels around the world, there are two people that I think are just brilliant. One of them is Brit Hume. And I think that if you've watched Brit at all, you know there's a real brilliance there one of the things that I loved about working with Britt is how he was able to see things so clearly, and would be like 3 steps ahead of everybody else, and then didn't understand why everybody else didn't see it the way he saw it. You know, you ever run into people like that? Well, of course, Brian, that's obvious, but what's the next step? And I would, I would eventually get there, but he would be like, he would just have it so quickly, and that brilliance is, hard to. And I never ever heard him pull up a fact from his memory that was wrong. I mean, he would always, well, yeah, this reminds me of back in 1983 and you'd go back and check it, and he was, dead on. His memory was never at fault. And then the second person that I think was about as brilliant a human being as I ever encountered, which was James Rosen. Now, in Washington, Rosen has a reputation of being a pretty smart guy. He's written books that, are 1,500 pages long. He's a brilliant caricature artist, and a pretty good mimic, by the way. You should hear his impression of me. But when he gets in a situation where he asks the question, it's almost always the case that the room gets real quiet. And here is the reason why. This is 3 minutes of James Rosen questioning John Kirby today during the White House briefing.
Okay, thank you very much, Karine, and thank you, Admiral. 2 questions on the Mideast crisis. 27 Americans killed is a very large number. That is larger than the number of Americans who were killed by terrorists during our withdrawal from Afghanistan, larger than the number of Americans killed at the USS Cole, larger than the number of Americans killed at Benghazi or beheaded by ISIS. And I believe it's accurate to say that after all of those events, direct U.S. military action was ordered by the Commander-in-Chief. 27 Americans killed. Why is it the posture of the Biden administration to just let Israel handle this job, in essence, instead of U.S. forces going in and getting the guys that killed our people?
James, we will do, as Jake said, everything we can to get those American hostages home with their families. We recognize that they are not the only people being held hostage. Other nationalities are included in that group. We don't have enough information right now to make a policy decision about how to do it. So I can appreciate the sense of urgency in your question. Believe me, we share it. But we aren't going to act one way or another until we have enough information to act upon.
And then on the hostages issue, you have suggested that it's a very small number of hostages, American hostages, being held in Gaza, less than a handful.
Treat yourself.
And I assume that that assessment is still operative. Has there been any discussion amongst President Biden and his aides about how to avoid the fate of Jimmy Carter in this situation, where we actually saw the President of the United States and his administration become, in effect, hostages themselves to a foreign terrorist organization?
With all the respect that President Biden has for President Carter, I can assure you that he is not focusing on history here, even domestic history. He's focusing on what's going on now and making sure that we are doing everything we can to support Israel and look after our national security interests in this moment, because this is not 1979, it's 2023. And Hamas is an organization that has existed for many years with the support of Iran. We've got enough challenges just dealing with this that we're focused on that and that alone. Thanks, everybody. And with that, they ended the briefing. I mean, good questions. And look, you can't help but think about the fact that if Hamas has, we don't know how many Americans they might hold. We've been told that 14 now today, 14 are now unaccounted for, 27 dead, 14 unaccounted for. And we know that they have hostages who are Americans. We're certain of that fact. What we don't know is how many Americans are being held hostage, because we have about 14 that are unaccounted for, and they may or may not be held hostage. They may just be, unaccounted for. We don't know where they are. Maybe they got out. Maybe they haven't checked in. We don't know. But one way or the other, American hostages are being held by Hamas inside Gaza. We expect, but we don't know. And as was pointed out earlier, the administration doesn't know how many there are, and they don't know where they are. And he said, in fact, that the hostages don't know where they are.
That's a very interesting comment. Very interesting comment. And you can't help but think about the hostage situation during the Carter era when they had, the Iranians held a bunch of people against their will from the U.S. Embassy. And it went on and on and on and on. And President Carter tried to run a rescue mission. It was failed. Helicopters crashed in a desert storm, literally a desert sandstorm. And they did not complete the mission. It was a complete failure. And many people believe it was the inability of the Carter administration to solve the Iranian hostage crisis that led to the election of Ronald Reagan as president. Americans were tired of a president who blamed the woes of the country on the people who live in the country and not of the leadership of the country. He said there was a malaise across the country, and he could not, for love nor money, find a way to get the American hostages back, and they were being paraded on TV, and the Iranians were having a great time with all of that, and the frustration of Americans revealed itself, I guess, during the election in which Jimmy Carter lost to Ronald Reagan. On the day that Ronald Reagan was sworn into office, the Iranians realized, we better give these guys back. We don't want to deal with Reagan. So literally on election day, they released the hostages. Can one see a similar scenario happening now? That we have an ineffective president who can't seem to get anything done, has an intelligence community that reports to him that missed this completely, missed it absolutely completely, and did not know this was going to happen. The Israelis count on us for a lot of our intelligence, for a lot of their intelligence, and we didn't tell them anything, and they didn't see anything, so it happened literally with no warning. Nobody saw it coming. Now we have another situation where Americans are being held hostage, and a number of Americans have been killed. And the White House and this administration seems fully prepared to let the Israelis handle it for now, but James' question is a good one. You know, we've had incidents around the country around the world where fewer people than 27 have died, and we took care of business. This administration doesn't seem to be willing to enter the fray. I don't think that the Israelis would want them in right now, but there may come a time and a place where the U.S. military needs to take over and do what needs to be done to sort of rectify the situation of having 27 Americans killed and a number of them apparently held hostage. So there is that. Former President Donald Trump has talked about this situation. He is most outraged, it seems, about the situation with regard to the $6 billion. There was a question about this today in the White House briefing room, and I'm going to pull that up real quick before I play this other soundbite. Admiral John Kirby was asked about, why don't you freeze the money? The question was asked by Jackie Henrich of Fox News.
Why is it that you won't come out and say that the U.S. does not intend to let this money go to Iran?
Jackie, we've always had, since the beginning, we've always had the ability to provide oversight over the disbursement of these funds. We've always had the option, if we wanted it, to look at transactions and to make a call about whether we found it valid or not. That has not changed. And even now, as you and I are speaking, none of that money has been accessed by anybody. It's still all there.
But that does not answer the question. Why not freeze it so that there's no possible way that they can get that money? And Jackie Henrich followed up.
Is it because we think that freezing it essentially again would complicate any negotiations with Iran or our ability to get Americans home in the future?
I'm not going to go into any more detail.
What do you draw from that? Chris, when you hear that, what do you draw from it?
I think it's exactly what everyone is drawing from it. I think it's very obvious
that we're negotiating with Iran.
That's what it sounds like to me.
Well, and you see, that's the thing I have a problem with. Everybody talks about, well, let's not let them spend any of that money. I think they're missing the bigger point. The bigger point is how we decided to release that money. We gave them the release of that money with strings attached, admittedly, when they gave us back 5 hostages. So that's like, more than $1 billion a hostage. That would be $1.2 billion per hostage, if my math is correct, and I think it is. So, why wouldn't you take hostages? I mean, what was learned in the region was Hamas saw this and they said, well, if we just take a few hostages, we'll get some money. And if we get a few hostages, then the mighty Americans will have to, bow to us. And that's what they learned out of that. And that's what I think is so troublesome. President Trump spoke about the money today, talking about we need to freeze that money.
Crooked Joe must take back and freeze the $6 billion right now. Take it back and freeze it, Joe. Freeze it, Joe, you dumb person. Dumb person. Freeze that money, Joe. He doesn't know what the hell money I'm talking about. Freeze it, Joe. It's not too late because supposedly it's doing a transfer and that takes a little while. He can freeze the damn money. What they did is unacceptable. In addition...
Well, anyway, he went on to say that, the money should be frozen and it takes a while for them to do it. There's an opportunity to freeze the money. I think the money should be freezed. I think it should be seized. And I think the Biden administration ought to send military aircraft to Israel to get Americans out before this thing gets worse for Americans than it already is. It's 50 minutes now, past the hour of 6 o'clock. Hey, if you're in the market for a pole barn, the 2 brothers who run Stoltzko are the guys you need to talk to. Exceptional quality, craftsmanship, and fair prices. They can build your new pole barn to your specifications with your needs in mind, and that is the Stoltzko difference. Now, you can use pole barns for all kinds of things. It can be used as a classic tool or a work barn, a garage, even a place to live. Flexibility is key. They will combine the classic post-frame barn look with the reliability of modern materials and techniques to give you a finished barn that will stand the test of time. They do not scrimp on quality. They do not cut corners. They believe their customers deserve only the best. So why don't you go to their website? It's stoltzco.com. Let me spell that out for you. STOLTZCO.com, stoltzco.com. Take a look at some of the examples they have posted there. And you're going to look at it and you're going to be really impressed. This isn't your grandpappy's pole barn. Then give them a call, 615-622-5992. Stoltzco, where quality workmanship and great customer service is affordable. You can learn more at stoltzco.com. That's stoltzco.com.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. I've been teaching investing on Nashville airwaves for over 20 years with the Investor Coaching Show. And in that time, I taught a lot about how markets work and how we invest money and academic principles of investing money. But I've also talked an awful lot about how to avoid the mistakes that people often make with their money. Think about it. A lot of people sold out of the market at the worst time when COVID struck, or when TARP happened, the Troubled Asset Relief Program, or gold, they invested in that at the worst time. Bailing out of the market because they were worried about Y2K or 9/11 or jumping into energy stocks or jumping into cryptocurrency. One of the things that I like to do is educate investors because I believe that the more educated you are, the more confident you are, and the more confident you are, the more successful you can be as an investor. Now, I not only do that on our radio show, but we do that in our offices around the Nashville region, 10 offices. To learn more about our approach to investing and financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call, or you can call 615-851-1950.